5 at Radio Row, Saints Insider Podcast Live. One more time from Super Bowl 59 here on this Friday, February the 7th. I'm Zach Ewing, joined today by a couple of my good friends from Advocate columnist Scott Rabelais and Times-Picayune writer Luke Johnson. It's all very confusing. We're the same company. But here we are.
Don't let everybody know it's confusing. It is a little bit confusing. At least we stopped doing the Advocate bar, Times-Picayune bar, NOLA.com.
We did do that, but we're all the same company. We're all in the same group, and it is prediction day on this podcast for Super Bowl 59, Chiefs versus Eagles, coming your way Sunday. We are going to have some guests drop in, hoping to get. Well, we'll see who we get. Michael
mystery
Brockers,
guest.
Yeah, Michael Brockers is supposed to be here, former LSU linebacker,
that'd be a
NFL
good one.
linebacker,
Defensive tackle.
defensive tackle. Jordan Love is walking around, and I kind of used to know him, so maybe we can flag down Jordan Love. We'll see what happens.
All right. Bakersfield connects.
That's right.
And there goes Jaden Daniels walking right past us.
Jaden Daniels has been here, I think, just about every day.
Yeah.
Brad, maybe you should wave him down. You know, Jaden
I know.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to get him tomorrow. He's here to give he's going to be having a little press conference. He's giving away a trip to the Super Bowl to a ex-Marine, I believe, Luke.
Semper Fi.
And same with Justin Jefferson. So, but yeah, I'm sure he's making the rounds. And there's a guy named Rabelais over there with a Chiefs jersey on.
No, it's a Louisiana Kitchen jersey. It's not a Chiefs jersey.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks like a Chiefs jersey.
That guy's also enormous. He looks like a guard.
Yeah, this is the sights
a
and sounds
walking-
of Radio
he's a
Row
walking
that
billboard.
people
That's
are here for.
Yeah, that's
Let's
right.
try to give you a little feel.
By the way, Marine Corps' 250th birthday this year. We had General in the Marine Corps on Tuesday. The days are all melting together. I think it was Tuesday. So that was cool. We've had Saints players on. We've had Rashid Shaheed, Blake Groupie, Charlie Smith, missing somebody. I said Rashid. Bob Means, Spencer Rattler.
Cesar Ruiz?
Cesar Ruiz was on. Ex-Saints players, Marcus Colston, Thomas Morstead. Jermon Bushrod.
Jermon's my guy.
Yeah, good guy. So it's been a lot of fun, and we're going to wrap things up today. We're going to be with you till about 1 o'clock. So, Luke, you have to go, so we're going to start with you. You got to go out to Chiefs practice, as you've been doing all week.
I do. Riding my bike out there. I'm going to show up sweaty and disgusting and say, let's watch this practice.
You'll fit right in.
Yeah.
You were the fittest non-player here. The Super Bowl.
Not according to my to the food bill I've had.
Well,
this
we also had the Old Spice guy on yesterday without his shirt on, so he may contend for that. I don't know.
He might.
I don't have the confidence to do that. So, Luke, before we let you go, what is your pick for Sunday and why?
So every single logical part of my brain wants to pick the Eagles. They have the Monstars on the offense with two all-world receivers, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. They've got Dallas Goedert at tight end. They've got 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen have either made a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro in the last year. And then Saquon Barkley's pretty good too. And then you look at their defense, and Vic Fangio has them playing it at top 5 level, maybe top 3 level. They've been great all year, and the Chiefs have been shaky, despite winning 17 out of their 19 games. I'm still taking the Chiefs. I think my final score prediction was 24-23, and really, I'm just going with whatever the opposite of logic is, and I'm gonna continue picking them until they give me a reason not to, because they get it done time and time again, and I look like a fool every time I pick against them.
I think the sentiment that we've heard over and over again this week rings true. If it's a close game in the last 5 minutes, the Chiefs are going to find a way, because that's what they do.
Yeah, I think they're 12-0 in one-score games this year.
Defies logic.
Yeah, and look, they've done it in a lot of different ways, but a lot of it has been their defense, which, if they play at a high level this week, and we talked about it earlier on the show this week, if they can find a way to just like keep Saquon from having an all-time great Super Bowl performance, if they just have him have a pretty good game, 85, 90 yards, I'd feel pretty good about the Chiefs' chances in this. But if Saquon goes off, I feel less good about it. We'll see. But I do think one thing that I think we should be keeping an eye out on this week is Jake Elliott, the Philadelphia Eagles kicker, who's been kind of shaky.
He has.
I think he's 1 for 8 on field goal attempts at 50+ yards this year. Missed a couple extra points. I think that could play a factor in this game.
And Jalen Carter has been missing press conferences
with
and
an
practices
illness.
with an illness. Now, I mean, you know, everybody's been sick before. Like if you're sick on Wednesday, you probably feel fine by Sunday, but I don't know. It's just one more little concern for Philadelphia.
Yeah. Maybe he got some bad oysters. I don't know.
Maybe so. It's Bourbon Street flu. All right, Luke, we're going to let you get on your bike and get out to Chiefs practice at Tulane. We're going to take a quick break here on the Saints Insider Live from Radio Row.
At Oxner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Jadowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out.
All right, welcome back to Radio Row Live. Said goodbye to Luke Johnson. Rab, we haven't had you on a week, and then I had to ignore you to get Luke out of here. But
No.
Yeah, what is your impression of Radio Row? You walk around. This is your first time here this week.
First time here this week. Obviously, I've been to the last two Super Bowls here in New Orleans. It's quite a show. I mean, you know, it's all the different stages, and you see the famous people walking around. You said we just saw Jaden Daniels walk by, and it's. The Super Bowl is a neat and weird experience. It's, first of all, it's 10 times bigger than like the college football national championship game in terms of all the spectacle and all the things going on with it. But there are a lot of weird people walking around. I mean, the opening night thing, I saw this guy dressed as a genie.
Did you get your picture with SpongeBob and Patrick back there on the way in?
No, that's probably not going to happen. The Paw Patrol guys were here. Well, maybe so, because my grandsons are big into Paw Patrol. But, you know, it's just a happening. And it's cool when you know that you're in the place where it's the center of the sports universe. And obviously this week, that's New Orleans, that's the Super Bowl, and this is where we are. And we're close by the Sirius XM stages. You know, they got like a whole sound stage over here.
They have had all four of those. In fact, I think they do right now. All four of them are on air at the same time, which is incredible. They got all those different channels, of course. But, yeah, you get big guests walking by all the time. We've got a few of them to stop by our booth here, and you're right. It has become, Jim Derry and I have had this conversation before because we're kind of the football nerds and we're all, you know, football all the time. The Super Bowl has become so much more about football that sometimes you forget that there's a game at the end of the week on Sunday.
Oh yeah, I mean it's this event, and it's that press conference, and it's this person, you know, speaking, and it's this thing that happens, and yeah, I mean it's you know, well, once again, you know, they've gone back and forth, as you know, through the years. A week between the championship games and the Super Bowl, 2 weeks. Now there's 2 weeks again. I think it adds to all the hype and all the other stuff going on. Did the NFL honors thing last night at the Sanger Theater, and so you know, it's just it's a big happening, and it's you know, some people want to avoid it. I understand that because it's a lot to get down here and a lot to get around. I like being where things are happening, where you're in the middle of everything, and this kind of appeals to me. So I'm enjoying this scene. I really am.
It's one of those things, having spent all week here, and this is my first Super Bowl, but you can be having a terrible time for like 15, 20 minutes. The crowds are bad. The traffic's bad. I can't find a parking space. Everything is crazy. I'm trying to find somebody to talk to them, and I can't find them. Nobody wants to answer their phone. And then 15 minutes later, you have the greatest experience that you know that you've had in months, because you finally do find somebody, or you see something that you don't usually get to see. I mean, and that, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but that's sort of my reflection on it.
it's a little feast or famine, isn't it?
It
What you're
is.
trying to get,
And it's this.
which one?
You have to embrace the zaniness of it. For
Oh,
sure.
you do. I was here for the last Super Bowl. I got on a media bus, and there was a guy dressed as a Viking. I mean, a Viking with a helmet and the horns and the beard and the fur.
So the Vikings do make the Super Bowl. From
Yeah,
time to time.
they do. They do. That reminds me of my old. I was telling you the first Super Bowl I remember was Super Bowl 10, the Steelers and the Cowboys. Hopefully, there's someone out there watching who remembers Super Bowl 10. And I remember watching part of it with my dad, and I went out to play with my friends. But I watched Super Bowl 11, and I remember they were interviewing Fran Tarkenton after the game. The Raiders beat the Vikings at the Rose Bowl. And I knew he'd lost three Super Bowls in his career, one of them here in New Orleans, Super Bowl 9. And I was just thinking, he's old. He's never going to get a chance to win another one. And, of course, the Vikings have never, ever been back. And then, of course, Super Bowl 12 here 2 years later, first one in the Superdome. The Cowboys beat the Broncos. Never liked the Cowboys. Never do. It was pulling for the Broncos. Took them a long time to win, but they finally came through. And so, yeah, it's unfortunately, I whatever year the Super Bowl is, whatever number it is, that's how old I'm going to be that year. So it's easy for me to keep up with what Super Bowl is when.
You and the Super Bowl and almost the Saints. I think the Saints started the year after the first Super Bowl. So it's like right there. But speaking of the Saints, today we talked about this yesterday with Marcus Colston stopping by and Jermon Bushrod the day before. But it is the 15-year anniversary today of the Saints winning their Super Bowl. So obviously it's kind of a special day, nice round number 15, like you can celebrate it every year if you want, but it just goes to show you, and another topic we've been talking about all week, the Saints feel a long way off from that point right now.
You know, I don't think it, I remembered a lot of bad Saints teams. I was not a Saints fan as a kid. I liked the Rams because the Saints weren't any good. They'd go 4-10 or 3-11 or 5-11 every year. And, but when they finally did it and they finally got it together, you know, you're like, you know, this is amazing that they finally did it because it seemed like they never would. And it's starting to feel that way again. It's harder than people think, obviously. I mean, they had that year. I covered the NFC Championship game in 2006, the first Breeze Payton year when they lost at Chicago, and I covered the game with the infamous no call against the Rams in the NFC Championship game in 2019, and it was that was just it's harder than you think. It's like what the Chiefs are doing, you know, being here 5 out of 6 years and going for their an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl victory. They make it seem a little easier than it is. It's really not. And for this to be the same two teams 2 out of 3 years is pretty remarkable. So hopefully for Saints fans, it's sooner than if it's 15 years away from the Super Bowl win. Within the next 15 years, are the Saints going to get back to the Super Bowl? At this moment, it doesn't feel like that.
No,
but
things do change quickly.
Things do change
in the NFL.
quickly.
They do. But I asked Rod Walker the other day, because he's been doing a lot of Pelicans coverage for us ever since Christian Clark left. And, of course, the Pelicans traded Brandon Ingram on Wednesday night, NBA trade deadline. And they seem farther away from a championship, maybe not than ever, but certainly more than they were a couple years ago when they were taking the number 1 seed Suns to the brink in the first round and things like that. And you had a young team. You thought, man, you can actually see this building. And I asked him which team, I don't even say win a championship, which team makes it back to the championship round first, the Saints to the Super Bowl or the Pelicans for the first time to the NBA Finals. And he kind of looked at me like, how come neither isn't an option? You know, like is either one going to happen in our lifetimes? I don't know. I mean,
none of the above.
Yeah, but it does seem far away. But you know, like, look, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have had a history of success in the last 20 years or so, but they had a couple of bad years.
Oh, a lot of bad years.
Not just 10 years ago, they had some bad years.
From winning, okay, they've won the division every year since 2016.
Yeah,
and of course, been all these Super Bowls and everything. But between winning Super Bowl 4 here in New Orleans, beating the Vikings at Old Tulane Stadium, and winning that first division title, they had a lot of bad seasons. They had I think I counted it. There were like 23 losing seasons or non-winning seasons in that row, and never made it back to the Super Bowl at all. And if Chiefs fans 20 years ago might have felt like Saints, I don't remember the exact record of 20 years ago, but say 20 years ago, they might have felt exactly like Saints fans do now. God, are we ever going to get? Remember that championship way back in the distance, back in 1970?
Yeah.
Are we ever going to get back to that? Is it ever, never going? And it can happen, but obviously we spent a lot of time talking about the Saints, and and the way they're doing things and the way the way the team's structured. And I think the whole coaching search thing speaks to what a lot of people think where the franchise is right now. They're greener pastures. There are people waiting, like Joe Brady, waiting for a better opportunity to come along before he jumps at being a head coach. So, it does seem far away now, but you're right. It can change in a few years. But no matter what, the Saints are a few years away from anything really good at this point, it would seem.
Yeah, and the Saints look poised to hire Kellen Moore, the Eagles' offensive coordinator, maybe as early as Monday. I mean, I don't know if Kellen Moore just stays in town or if he says, "Hey, can I fly back home and get a couple changes of clothes and come back Tuesday or Wednesday?" I don't know, but they do seem poised to go in that direction. To me, that one's a little bit fraught with risk. Like, Kellen Moore has coordinated, obviously, a very good Eagles offense this year. Now, they've got a great offensive line. They've got Saquon Barkley. They've got a quarterback who's been to the Super Bowl before this year. Like, he's got some pieces to work with now. But he also had number one offenses 2 different years in Dallas, where he also had pieces to work with. So he has some good things. Also, he's 36. He would be the youngest head coach in the NFL. You've seen that movie before where a guy comes in and has had success as a coordinator. Hell, we've seen that movie in New Orleans before. A guy has success as a coordinator, and it isn't quite the same when he gets into the head coach's seat. So I think there's a lot of risk with Kellen Moore, but there's some upside too.
I've always thought if I was an athletic director in college or general manager in the NFL or whatever sport, I would want someone with head coaching experience. I would want someone who's proven it at the highest level, because it doesn't always translate, right?
Yeah.
The guy's a great coordinator. He's a great football mind. He's a great this and that. And sometimes when you take that next little leap, when you add on those extra responsibilities, things change. It's not quite the same. But you're right. You've seen the success many times. Over the years. I think in college football, Kirby Smart never been a head coach, and he's 1 or 1A.
Sure.
I would think in most people's minds these days as a head coach at Georgia.
Nick Sirianni had never been a head coach before. He's 2 Super Bowls in 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Kellen Moore is a bit of a risk for the Saints. It's a bit of a taking a bit of a leap. But at this point, I don't know that if they have a better option or if they are in a position not to take something of a risk. So it's like drafting a quarterback in the first round. Is he going to be great? Is he going to be the player to change your franchise, turn it around, or is he not? I remember seeing Patrick Mahomes play LSU in the Texas Bowl. I remember thinking, man, this guy's running for his life, but he's really something. And LSU won the game easily, but he made a great impression. Turned out to be a great pro, but you didn't know. I mean, it's like this young, kind of scrawny guy scrambling around for Texas Tech. Yeah, is that going to translate in the NFL? So you never really know. But I think the Saints, of all the options they have, a Kellen Moore would not be the worst choice. And I don't think they have a lot of options either or better. So why not go for it?
Joined on the other side now by our other Saints beat writer for the Times-Picayune, Matthew Paris. I think we're still finagling the cameras, but he is there. Rab, while you were on the topic, you mentioned LSU. That is Scott's primary job as a columnist for LSU Sports up in Baton Rouge. Look, you can say what you want about Brian Kelly, and maybe we can get to another topic about him later also, but the program, the state of the program, look no further than the Offensive Rookie of the Year, as announced last night at the NFL Honors, was Jaden Daniels, who, of course, won the Heisman in Baton Rouge. And then 2 of the other 4 finalists were his receivers, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Like, that program is still pumping out so much talent to the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, I said on one of our podcasts the season was a failure. It's become pass-fail in college football with the expanded college football playoff. You're one of those 12 teams, you had a successful season. If you're not, season is a failure. But overall, the program is not failing. I mean, they've won 29 games. Has it been super great? No, but they have had a Heisman winner. They did win the SEC West in 2022, and they've won 29 games in all 3 of their bowl games, and continue to produce NFL caliber talent, and are putting together a team that I think will be ranked in the top 10 of the preseason. Yeah, all the expectations are for them to make the playoff in 2025, and that Garrett Nussmeier is starting the year as the Heisman favorite or second choice, maybe behind Arch Manning, depending on where you shop. So it's a failure, real abject failure is what Florida State did this year, going 2-10, or what Oklahoma State did. They were picked to win the Big 12, and they finished like, I think they went 0 for the conference. So yeah, they're still turning out players, and this year's team, coming off of this year's team, Will Campbell's going to be a first-round draft pick. You would figure LSU hadn't had a first-round draft pick as an offensive lineman in a very long time, probably going back to the 80s. So that would be something that that you could say. But they're still waiting on the big triumph, the big victory, the big turning the corner back to national prominence where you haven't been since 2019. And for people who are frustrated and wondering if that's going to happen, yeah, I understand that, but that's what makes this all such a crucial year for him and for the LSU program.
You are watching the Saints Insider Podcast live from Radio Row here at Super Bowl 59. We're brought to you by Ochsner Health. They're the official medical provider of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. And welcoming in Matthew Paris, as we mentioned, he's here. Matt, you've been hanging out with the Eagles all week. Anything changed on your end, opinion-wise? Anything behind the scenes that maybe people don't know about the Eagles?
Well, it's a reminder of how stacked they are when you're trying to find out who to interview or who you want to interview, and you see just all pro talent left and right. But I think it'll still be a really close game as it's kind of gone on. The question that is always asked is about Steve Spagnuolo's pressure packages. How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with that? And I kind of think that this game is going to come down to that, because we've seen Jalen Hurts struggle with the blitz at times, especially in these playoffs. And if they don't have a solution for that, then I think the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll ask you for your prediction before you go, but I also think, there is a world in which the Eagles do figure that out. They've got a great offensive line. Maybe Jalen Hurts still knocking off some rust from the concussion he had late in the regular season, and in 2 weeks he's got a little bit better plan against the blitz. I think there is a pathway for the Eagles to not dominate this game, but really kind of control it. That's their MO. We've seen them do it against the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen them do it against the Commanders last week. We've seen them do it against good teams, the Packers, the Rams. They have that in them.
They do, and what's been impressive about their run right now is that even the Commanders game was close for a bit, then they blew it open. They don't really panic when it isn't going their way to start. And, another thing that could maybe help with the blitz is Jalen Hurts has good weapons. If you have to throw hot, you're throwing to a guy who, maybe has an 1,000-yard season in A.J. Brown if he's the quick throwaway option, or Dallas Goedert. Saquon Barkley, I think, to your point, can help kind of control that tempo. And yeah, we'll see how they handle it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Rab, I look at the Chiefs, and we talked about Nick Saban at Alabama for a long time, and they obviously had a ton of talent, and they would win games, 51-13 occasionally, and things like that. The Chiefs, I don't know, man. But Alabama also had these teams that would just find a way at the end, and they were like the boogeyman. If you were close at the end, you were in trouble, and you knew it. And that was part of it too. And I start to see that. I think of the AFC Championship with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I think, had a couple of bad throws at the beginning of that game. He looked better in the middle, but then at the end, when it was crunch time, I think he felt the boogeyman a little bit. And the Chiefs have become that in close games.
17 straight wins in one-score games. I mean, you can't ignore that. The Eagles know that. It's got to be in the back of your mind. I'm all for talking about the physical matchups and this team's got that athlete and that team, but the Chiefs just have this aura now with them that is, it's almost like a great athlete, like a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods, and like that. They know they're going to beat you. You know they're going to beat you, and they know they're going to beat you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that thing now where I think they have a psychological advantage over the Eagles, and of course, you want to say that the Eagles have a lot of matchup advantages. Matthew, when they played the Saints, it was a Sunday night game
for
the Chiefs.
Monday night.
It was Monday night game. Yeah, it was. Mahomes was doing his Mahomes thing. They pressured him. He scrambled out. He gets the first down, and I guess Troy Aikman's like, it's so frustrating playing this guy, because he just finds so many different ways to make a play with his arm, with his legs, with his head. So, I just think the Eagles can definitely win. And you might give me any argument you want to say why they should win. I won't deny it. But until you knock off the champion, they're the champion, the Chiefs, and I think it's I think that's why they're going to win again. I think they're going to find a way to pull it out.
I feel a bit like you have to leave no doubt if you're going to beat them,
Right.
because if you do leave doubt, we've seen them do it, but you got to do what the Bucs did 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and just thrash them. And to that point, Steve Spagnuolo's pass rush could be an issue for Jalen Hurts. The Eagles' pass rush could absolutely be an issue for the Chiefs in this game too.
It could be. I mean, the Chiefs, up until a few weeks ago, were still trying to find out who the 5 best linemen could be. They moved Joe Tooney to left tackle. That move has actually worked well for them, even though he's been so good at guard. But, you know, Philly is so big and imposing, especially on the inside with Jalen Carter. Now, he's been dealing with an illness, and I think that's something to watch. But, you know, you're going to get the return of Brandon Graham. I think that'll help you on the edge. Nolan Smith has had a really nice season. Nolan Smith, right?
Yeah,
nice.
Got it.
And, they just really stacked defensively, and it's just a unit that has talent everywhere. I mean, Zach Bond was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and he's their green dot for their linebacker. So it's a really impressive unit. Vic Fangio's addition there has been the reason the Eagles are in the Super Bowl outside of Saquon is because they remade their coordinator. They hired new coordinators this offseason.
I think if you compare the game to the Super Bowl they played 2 years ago, Saquon is the obvious difference, right? Like they have Saquon Barkley. I think the defense is better, and I think Jalen Hurts may have taken a step back, but I just think this team may be more ready for the moment.
Yeah, something with the Eagle in relation to Hurts, maybe taking a step back. Have you asked the Eagles about their passing offense? They're confident they can do it. It's just they haven't really been asked to. And I know they rank last in yards and last in passing attempts, but I think a lot of that is the attempts. I mean, they haven't really been forced to throw in these games. But you look at last week against the Commanders, they, Hurts had a really nice game there. So I don't know if you want to get in a shootout in that form. I think the Chiefs have a pretty good secondary, but if it goes there, I mean, we've seen them do it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to take a break here on the Saints Insider Podcast live from Radio Row here at the New Orleans Convention Center leading into Super Bowl 59. We're brought to you by Ochsner Health, and we will be right back after this.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, President and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Jadowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. This time, we're talking all things Superdome. First, we'll chat with Steve Farrago, NFL Director of Event Operation, about how he and his team start work way ahead of time to make sure the Dome is game day ready on Super Bowl Sunday. Then, Evan Holmes, the GM of the Superdome, talks Dome renovations and takes me on the coolest escalator ride of my life. So, stay tuned in.
Welcome back to Radio Row live here with the Saints Insider Podcast. Zach Ewing hanging out with Scott Rabelais and Matthew Paris. on this Friday, 2 days until game time. So, all right. Matt, you may hang on with us for a while. I don't know, but let's get to your prediction.
Sure.
Most people, Rab, I think, has already given away who he's going to pick, which is fine. Luke picked the Chiefs. I can't tell which way you're leaning. I think I've actually seen your prediction in our special section, but I can't remember it. So break down who you think is going to win Sunday and why.
I've got the Chiefs. I've got 27-24, so I think it's going to be lower scoring than the first meeting. I think it's going to be the same margin, but I just can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. And that's really what it boils down to. Is I think the Eagles are actually the more talented team. They've certainly looked better throughout the season, but the Chiefs know how to win close games, and I think they've been playing pretty well of late. That Buffalo game was really impressive to me, and I just can't pick against Mahomes.
I get it. I do get it, and I think that's what a lot of the refrain around Radio Row has been. So
yeah.
I may save my pick for a little bit later in the show after we get some others in there. But I don't know. On one hand, it's like Mahomes is inevitable. He's going to find a way. If it's 3rd and 8 in the fourth quarter, they're always going to get it. Or if it's 4th and 5 and they need it, they're always going to get it, that sort of thing. At the same time, I kind of feel like he can't keep getting away with this guy. Like there has to be a time when you cannot succeed in those instances 100% of the time, can you?
There has to be a reckoning, right? Eventually the streak will end. As Skip Burtman, the LSU baseball coach, famously once said to me, he said, when they won all these national championships in a row, he said, eventually we will lose the national championship game. He said, but it doesn't mean it has to be tomorrow. And yes, eventually the Chiefs will lose and not come through, but it doesn't have to be Sunday. And so, I mean, let's think back to the AFC Championship game where the Bills are up by 1 point, right? If the Chiefs are in that position Sunday and they're down 1 and they got the ball with 6 minutes left or something like that, don't you think they're gonna score? They're gonna find a way to make a drive and take the lead with a field goal or score a touchdown?
Everybody in the building will think that.
Exactly. So the other factor I haven't mentioned is the coaching factor. Andy Reid obviously has former Eagles coach, got here with the Eagles, has won all these Super Bowls now, and has cemented himself as one of the all-time greats. I just trust him a lot more than I trust Nick Sirianni. I can't quote you chapter and verse of a bad decision I think Nick Sirianni has made, but there are times I've watched the Eagles play like, why did he decide to do that? Why did they go for maybe a 4th down here? Why didn't they kick the field goal? Why did they go for I don't know. I don't trust his decision-making nearly as much as I trust Andy Reid, and I think it's another thing in a close game. Now, if the Eagles can find a way to dominate the lines of scrimmage, and they've got a 10-point lead with 8 minutes left, okay, but you're going to have to put the Chiefs down and keep them down to win this game if you're Philadelphia.
I think the other element we haven't talked about here, and kind of why I believe the Chiefs are going to win, is the three-peat factor. Just the fact that they have the chance to do something so special that no NFL team has done before, and they're actually at this moment. I think it says a lot about the strength of their team. And I think it's a reason why, I think it'll give them the extra push.
That definitely could. I mean, the letdown after winning one championship in any sport is pretty well known. The letdown after winning back-to-back, you got to fight against that human nature even more, and they've still made it back here. They're still favored by 1 point to win this game on Sunday and actually get the job done, which seems unreal. I was listening to a gambling – I know this will shock you guys. I was listening to a gambling podcast the other day.
What?
No.
And I think the Chiefs, kind of like Tom Brady's Patriots, have broken gambling guys a little bit because they look at the matchups and they say, well, the Eagles have the advantage here and here and here and here, and the Chiefs only have the advantage here, and this really shouldn't be that close of a game. And if it just doesn't seem to matter, man. But I did find it interesting. I've lost where I was going with this now, but they did say they thought the Eagles had the advantage in a lot of different categories.
Yeah, I mean, we could just go position by position. Quarterback, the Chiefs. Running back, Eagles. Wide receiver, Eagles. Offensive line, Eagles. Defensive line, probably Eagles. Linebackers, Chiefs maybe. I like Nick Bolton.
MIZ.
Yeah. Cornerback, that's probably Eagles, but I would hear
Maybe
an
a
argument.
wash there,
Maybe a wash. Yeah. Safeties, probably Eagle. No, I would go Chiefs there. So
kicker Chiefs.
Kicker Chiefs.
Kicker's Chiefs, yeah.
Although Actually, I think this is where I was going with this. One advantage the Eagles have, speaking of kickers, they're much better in the red zone than the Chiefs are. That's one area the Chiefs have struggled a little bit this year. Now, that hasn't been the case as much in the playoffs. But, you know, again, I've been saying this all week. If the Eagles can get out to a lead, they have a much better chance of salting the thing away. I mean, imagine the Eagles get the ball back with a, 4-point lead with 4 minutes left. Can they run a 4-minute drill against this defense?
Does Patrick Mahomes being 8-0 against Vic Fangio sway you at all? Different teams, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, because Vic Fangio has a very distinct philosophy. Like, this is what he does, right? He and obviously Mahomes is kind of kryptonite to that. But I would also say that has any of those previous Vic Fangio teams ever had the pass rushers that this team has?
Right.
That to me is a difference.
Yeah, I mean, he had Von Miller in Denver. He had Khalil Mack in Chicago. He's had some very good pass rushers. Like edge rushers, anyway.
Yeah. Maybe just as a group, and you're getting the interior pressure from the Eagles tackles. I don't know. But the red zone thing does worry me a little bit. We even saw that against the Saints. That game would have been a total blowout if Kansas City had been able to push the ball in the end zone. They couldn't.
Right.
Famously, in one case with a Colin Saunders.
Thick six. Yeah, almost thick six, yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
Thick, not thick six, but close enough.
Yeah. He's a big guy. We'll give him credit for it. It was like a 35-yard return.
Yeah.
So, okay, we are waiting here on Radio Row to see if we can't get any guests. I don't think it's as busy as it has been, Matt. Is that your impression? I mean, there's a lot of people, but it just seems like more people just kind of hanging out today than maybe it was.
Yeah, yesterday was the full-on blitz of, there's that quarterback, there's that quarterback, Today, I don't know, I saw Donovan McNabb, former Washington lineman F.A. Obata.
Ding! Only you, man. I walked by that guy and didn't know who it was. Jordan Love is supposed to be here today.
Okay.
Who else did I see was supposed to be here today? I saw Drew Brees is here again. He was over at the bounty booth with Gronk. So they're here.
Should I flag him down, see if he can come on today?
Yeah, Drew canceled on us yesterday, but he's back today. He's got to be everywhere. Oh, here's the thing we need to talk about, man. We haven't talked about this yet. NFL honors last night.
Oh, dude.
What in the hell happened? I want to be clear. I am not trying to put down or diminish anything that Eric Armstead has done, because I frankly didn't know about it. It's, you watch the video vignette, it seems like he's a great candidate for Man of the Year. I have no problem with Eric Armstead being NFL Man of the Year. None whatsoever. So let me be clear about that. But leading into this, we've been talking for a month about how the Saints finalist for Man of the Year, Cam Jordan, this would be the perfect opportunity to give it to him. He's been a finalist now, I think, 3 times. Hadn't gotten it either of the previous 2. Super Bowl's in New Orleans. Cam's maybe not at the end of his career, but nearing the end of his career. He's only going to have so many more chances at this. He's a great candidate for it. And so we all knew it was a possibility. We all thought it was a possibility. And then they bring in Drew Brees and Steve Gleason onto the stage to introduce the award.
It's a slam dunk,
and
right?
talk about,
Yeah.
How meaningful it is that Drew Brees won the award. He's the only Saints player to win the award. I would have lost any amount of money you wanted to bet me in the seconds leading up to the announcement that Cam Jordan was the winner of the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Any amount I can't remember the last time I was that stunned by something.
They even said this defender wrecked on the field and did even better in the classroom. That's Cam
Jordan's thing.
He goes to schools.
Dude, it wasn't a thing like with La La Land and Moonlight. It wasn't like that. You think they read the wrong name?
I swear to God, halfway through the Eric Armstead video, I'm thinking they're going to be like, "Psych, sorry, it's Cam Jordan." I still couldn't believe it.
Even peeling back the curtain, you have your pre-writes ready. We had so much anecdotal evidence that it was going to be.
It happened late. We had a spot in the newspaper for it, that we had to fill at the last second. I cannot remember the last time I was that surprised by something.
The Saints went about asking for last-minute seats, and the NFL honors people were like, "No, sorry, we're full." And they're like, "Oh, but it's for Cam Jordan." And they're like, "Oh, do you want some more?"
Is that right?
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
Gail Benson was there, right?
Gail Benson was in the front row. Yeah. Now, all the other owners might have been in the front row. I don't know, but
they showed Cam while Gleason was talking.
Right.
I say talking during his speech, and that was one. I was like, it's a little weird they're showing him when he's about to win this thing,
right.
but then he didn't win it. So I don't know. Like nothing else last night surprised me. I think Lamar Jackson deserved the MVP over Josh Allen, but
that did surprise me, honestly, just because Lamar was first team All-Pro.
Yeah, and statistically he was better. But I also, we've all voted for MVPs and stuff.
I get how that happened.
There's some fatigue with that, no question. But this is not the case with Cam Jordan. I mean, there's no fatigue there. It's not like he won it before.
Seriously,
it was shocking.
Is Glenn Close? Is it Glenn Close who's never won an Oscar despite being nominated a ton of times?
She has not.
She's been close.
Had
to do that.
Yes,
but so Saints fans, this is another way they can hate Roger Goodell. Though. Goodell probably.
Yeah, I'm sure
the fix was him.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I do
folks.
actually.
I don't
Matt,
think
do you know how that's voted on?
I have no idea.
That one's different. That's not voted on by writers like the other awards.
I'll say this for Eric Armstead. I remember when Andrew Whitworth won it. When he was with the Rams, former LSU guy, and all these guys are very worthy. I mean, if a team puts them up, all their credentials are. You're like, wow, this is like amazing. How does he have time to do this and be so good at football? But it seemed like a natural. Nice. The Super Bowl hadn't been here in so long, and you honor a Saint. It would have been a nice thing, and good for Eric Armstead, but it's kind of a shame as well for Cam because he's deserving.
And that's what I've been saying all week is like you don't know what the other guys have done. They do great things in their communities. I love the award. I mean, I like how much of a big deal the NFL makes of it because these guys are in a privileged position. It's nice to see the ones who understand that and do something with it. So again, I'm not taking anything away from Eric Armstead. I was just more surprised than anything that it wasn't Cam.
I guess the Super Bowl would just have to be in Jacksonville. Then they
tried that. I don't think a lot of people liked it.
No.
They tried that in like 2005.
There's no reason to ever go to Jacksonville, but
they had to put people on cruise ships and stuff. They had so few hotel rooms. It's not like this town. You could have it here every year. What do you would say? The national championship game and the Rose Bowl every year, the Super Bowl in New Orleans every year, right? Someone will say that.
Well, I don't think it should be anywhere every year, just because I think
I don't either.
That takes away a little bit of the, the special factor. But I do think I wouldn't mind like a 5-year rotation of Miami, New Orleans, I don't know, Phoenix, LA, and then the 5th year is like a wild card where they get some of the new stadiums in, and they get, they can go to some different places. I don't love the idea of LA just because everything's so spread out, but I do think you got to have a Super Bowl in LA every now and then.
I'm surprised they're going to the West Coast twice to California two years in a row.
And they were in Vegas last year, which is obviously not the coast, but close enough.
I like that, a rota, like the British Open. You just kind of move it around.
Right, you move it around, and then every 5th year is a wild card where you can
have it in the north, like. Yeah. What are the Bears going to do, Matt? Are they going to build a dome covered stadium?
Yeah, they probably will get one once.
And I think Washington will get one. Washington's building a new stadium. They'll get one.
Yeah.
You could go to Dallas. Like Dallas is not a bad place for it. Arlington. But it's
still the best stadium.
Nowhere is like here where so much is walkable. And if it's not walkable, they can set up an easy shuttle between here and the Superdome. Very easy. So, they would have to make some accommodations for Mardi Gras, especially if the NFL ever gets its way and goes to an 18-game schedule. Although I think we talked about this already this week, but I think in that case they would move the season up a week and start Labor Day weekend instead of the week after. So,
yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. Rod Walker's here. We might rotate him in for a little while. We are live on Radio Row with the Saints Insider Podcast. One more day hanging out with you. We'll be back right after this.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear. A strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion, to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talked to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. Hey y'all, I'm Robin Barnes, the New Orleans Songbird, and we are here for the making of Super Bowl 59 at the beautiful Superdome. This will be the 11th Super Bowl in New Orleans. New Orleans is known for its vibrant culture, rich history, and amazing music, if I do say so myself. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. This episode is all about the Super Bowl 59 Ambassador Program, presented by Chevron. Ambassadors are the volunteers who are responsible for the welcoming of hundreds of thousands of fans and visitors to New Orleans during Super Bowl week. First, we'll talk to Craig Forshag, Director of Sales for the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and Super Bowl 59 Host Committee, about what makes this ambassador program unique. Then, Leah Brown, Public Affairs Manager of Chevron's Gulf of Mexico Business Unit, tells us about their partnership on this program. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Radio Row here with the Saints Insider Podcast Live, hanging out with Matthew Paris and Scott Rabelais. We are brought to you by Ochsner Health, the official medical provider of the New Orleans Super Bowl Host Committee. One last day here on Radio Row. Wanted to change the subject just for a minute from the Super Bowl. This slightly off topic, but again, Rab covers LSU. Strange headlines coming out of a Brian Kelly press conference earlier this week where he had to defend himself against, so those who don't know the background here, Greg Brooks, an LSU player who has, what is the exact condition, Rab?
He had a brain tumor.
A brain tumor. It wasn't cancerous, but a brain tumor. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a lot of complications. He had to have surgery. He had a lot of complications.
And those sorts of things. And
suffered some
very serious situation. A couple years ago, players wearing decals on their helmets and patches on the jerseys and all that kind of stuff. Well, Greg Brooks' family has come out and essentially accused Brian Kelly of not properly supporting him.
Just kind of abandoning him. Yeah.
And Brian Kelly had to rather emotionally defend himself this week.
Yeah, we got this notice of a press conference from LSU, and I was like, this is a little bit unusual, but okay, it's the start of the traditional signing period in football.
Yeah.
The old school signing day. So it's okay, and. So Kelly comes out, and the first thing he said, this has hurt my heart. This is people. People. You can say what you want about my coaching or play calling or people I hire, but to say that I'm not for the players or that I don't care, this really bothers me. And then the family shot back again. There was a statement from the Brooks' lawyer saying that reiterating their point that he has them as supporting them, and so it was very interesting. And when you look at, we look at things journalistically and you take everything with a grain of salt, right? Brian Kelly said, I was there for him. I supported him. I was by his side. And he definitely was. But they contend that he wasn't there after October 2023. He never came to check on him again or came around again, maybe sent some staff members or something like that, but not him personally. And Brian Kelly did not specifically refute that timeline. So who do you believe more? Obviously, a lot of people don't like Brian Kelly, for whatever reason. From his days at Notre Dame, or you don't like him, how he coached, what happened with the kid in the scissor lift who died in the high winds at practice at Notre Dame, from just his attitude dealing with the media, whatever. He's got a lot of detractors, and then you have this young man who, no matter what happened, suffered a tragedy in his life.
Sure.
He was a robust, healthy, to all appearances, football player, starting safety for LSU, and then this happens to him. And it's just a human tragedy what happened to him, and his life will never be the same. Unfortunately, he suffered strokes and all this sort of thing, and also blaming the doctor who did the surgery, the brain surgery, saying he could have been better or he wasn't well trained enough. Anyway, I guess we'll see where it comes out.
I mean, my question is, could Brian Kelly have come by a few more times? Maybe yes. What is it exactly the family wanted Brian Kelly to do? What was the expectation there?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, they clearly, like LSU, as you said, they put the decals on the helmets. They put his number on the field for the whole 2023 season. They started a victory fund. They called it a victory fund where people, fans could donate money to help with Greg Brooks' medical expenses. All these things are facts too. It's as many things in life. It's a shade of gray kind of thing. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Could Brian Kelly have done more? Yes, but I think they did support him a lot, and I think this is a civil case, right? This is a civil thing.
Yeah.
I think I doubt if it ever goes to court. I think there'll probably be some kind of settlement at some point. I think the family is seeing Greg as, well, he could have gone on to the NFL and played a number of years and made all this money and stuff like that. And now
but Brian Kelly wasn't the one who prevented that from happening.
And they're saying they could. The family's saying they could have caught it earlier because he started having these symptoms and stuff like that. And that's
maybe fair.
Maybe that's fair. But as your I'm not a doctor, but does your initial thought go to, oh, this has to be a brain tumor, instead of he's having some vertigo, he's having this, I've had vertigo. I mean, it's you have these things that come up sometimes and the otherwise seems healthy. So
yeah,
I don't know. The whole thing is sad and unfortunate. Maybe LSU would say they wish they'd done some things differently, but it's kind of turned into a he said she said kind of situation. And but it was so unusual for Brian Kelly, to go back to what I said earlier, has suffered so many slings and arrows, whether you feel they're justified or not, that he's kind of let slide off his back. But
he wasn't willing to do that.
He wasn't willing to do that this time. Speaks to the fact that he wanted to proclaim his defense, and this really bothered him. And I will even say, I don't want to say what he said because it was incompetence. He left the press conference room. I was talking to Michael Cobble from Channel 2, the sports director. He was taking down his camera. Brian came back into the room to talk to the two of us to kind of further emphasize his point. And again, that's something he's never done. And like I said, we spoke off the records. I don't want to say what he said, but it was more of the same of what he said in the press conference. But that's how unusual this whole thing was. And but the family they're pressing forward with, they're going to try to get something from LSU. Maybe the doctor performed the surgery and all this, malpractice. I don't know. It's a long way from over. It's a long way from over. But this was a highly unusual thing for Brian Kelly to do, and potentially opens itself up to more criticism. And I don't think he has made another statement since the lawyer made a statement. So we'll see what happens next.
Okay, so we're live here on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. That was kind of an aside, but I thought an interesting topic in South Louisiana sports. I don't know. While we're on the topic of LSU, and we talked about this earlier with Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, and Link Neighbors all being finalists for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's talk a little draft, Matt. If you're the Saints, there are needs pretty much everywhere on the roster. I don't know if they have a position group where you'd say, nah, they don't need anybody there. They're good there. So where do you go in the draft?
I honestly think it depends on how it unfolds. If like the ASU kid, Jalen McMillan, the wide receiver,
Teteroa McMillan,
right,
or his name, and Tet McMillan, yeah.
If he's there at number 9, that I think would be a really strong pick for them. Now, I haven't done a lot of draft research, pulling what players yet. I feel like my last year's draft, I had a pretty good idea of who the Saints would want. I do not have such tastes right now, but there's
last year was the highest hit rate I think I've ever seen for somebody. We all knew Tali Fuanga was the pick by the time it rolled around to them, barring something shocking.
Right.
Jameis Winston's dancing over there.
But that's what's
why not?
That's what's kind of interesting about this year's draft for them, is that there's a slew of positions. I mean, even a position like defensive tackle, I mean, they've gotten bullied in the run game so often. And if you can find kind of that run-stuffing D-tackle to pair next to Brian Brzee, or if you can get someone even better, like who is versatile and can do both, that they seriously have to look at that. But where the Saints have lacked, specifically in terms of star talent the past couple of years, is on the defensive line, specifically the ends. They don't really have kind of that game-changing pass rusher. Cornerback is still a big need for them, especially after trading Marshawn Lattimore. And, tell me how the quarterbacks unfold, because I think that could be in play for them too if everything goes right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do with Derek Carr first and foremost. My thought is, you wait a year on the quarterback. I like next year's quarterback draft class better anyway. That's my personal opinion. I've always been on Mason Graham, the Michigan D tackle, and Abdul Carter, the Penn State DN. Now, Abdul Carter's getting a lot of buzz. Now, could go as high as number 1, right? So I don't know that either one of those guys is going to be available for the Saints at 9. We've seen Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland. If there's a guy they really like, they will go up and get him. So if they want Mason Graham, Michigan D tackle, to go up from 9 to 5 or 6 or something, that's going to be expensive, but I could see them doing that. I could also see the flip side. Now, they've never done this, or at least not in a long time. We mentioned the possibility of it last year.
But
stop. You trade back and like they need so much, Matt. They need so much. If you can go from 9 to 17 but pick up 4 more picks, like to me that's
it does. But they're looking at a draft because of the Lattimore trade. They could either have 9 or 10 picks, given like depending on how their comp picks and stuff shake out. But they're already set up to have a pretty stock, treasure chest to where I bet they would trade up more so than trade back again. So yes, in theory, it just also depends what it is. Like if a team wants a quarterback to trade up to 9, and you can get a potential 2026 first or something, maybe you look at it that way. But I just don't think that's how it's going to be. And it depends. Like even a guy like Will Campbell to bring him.
I was going to bring him up. They never draft LSU guys.
They never draft LSU guys. But do you think he'll play tackle or guard? Because if he could slot into play left guard, I actually think that's a really interesting.
You certainly hear more about Emory Jones, who was their starting right tackle for the last 3 years. Will started at left tackle for 3 years, so I'm sure he wants to play tackle so he can go to right, whatever. But yeah, I think it's not off the table for sure.
Well, the related question there is there still a chance that Trevor Penning moves into guard, or where is he at with his job? Do you think he's secure at right tackle?
Well, I don't know if he's secure, because when you finish 5-12 and have the season that they did, I don't think anyone should feel secure. But I will say I think he did a solid enough job to where you don't necessarily say, "Oh my God, we need a right tackle." Or
and when you have so many other needs, right?
If there's if you feel like I'm just going to keep using Will Campbell in part, but if you feel like, oh my God, he's such a stud left tackle, then you have Fuaga, you can move over to right, and then figure out what to do with Penning from there. But I don't know. I think both Fuaga and Penning played well enough to at least say, okay, let's try and fill the gaps elsewhere.
Yeah. The other guy I'll throw in there, and there's a reason that I know him, but who has some flexibility is Armand Mizzou.
Right.
Played tackle and guard in college and could be, either your swing tackle or maybe plays left guard. And he's getting some buzz, going up into the top 10. So he's a possibility too.
I have a question for Matt, if I may.
Sure,
if I may, Your Honor.
You, of course.
Oh, okay.
There's no structure here, man.
Well, you're the host. I don't want to step. You're about to say something really profound. I don't want to step on your toes. Looking about the Saints and the way they go into the draft, will they going to stay up? Are they going to fall? Will they trade back? And the first step to dealing with the problem is admitting you have one.
Right.
What is the thinking inside the building? Is it we're so close, if we draft that one really high draft pick, this is going to turn the corner for us? Or are they thinking internally, like Zach said, that, geez, we have a lot of issues, we just need to get more young bodies in here, we have an aging team, blah, 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 all these things that are wrong with the franchise. What is the mindset like, you think, with Loomis and the front office?
I think it's closer to the first one, but I don't necessarily think they are a piece away where we have to go all in. We've seen them now take steps toward trying to repair their salary cap situation. Now, I don't think they're going to take all their medicine at once this offseason. I don't necessarily know if they can from a cap perspective.
Yeah, right.
But you saw last year, their only big signing in free agency was Chase Young, and even then that was a modest, quote-unquote, 1 year, $13 million deal. They did not rearrange everything to try and lock him up long-term. they've been trying to get this slowly back to normal, but I don't think they see their talent as, oh my God, we need a lot of pieces. It's they would point to the injuries. They would say they have a good foundation. I think they probably see themselves, if I had to be an informed guess, is okay, they can compete for the division, but are they contenders? No.
I think you hit on one of the Saints' main problems over the last few years, and I'm not saying that, man, 5 years ago they should have blown it up right away. Like it wasn't illogical for them to say we're right there with that roster 4 or 5 years ago. I think we might be getting to the point where it's a little bit illogical to say that Cam Jordan and Demario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu and this defense that was not just not top 10 in the league like we expected, but it was bottom 10 in the league last year. Oh, yeah, we're close, right? I mean, I know there were a lot of injuries. I know they looked good the first 2 weeks, but it turned out they were playing bad teams. The Cowboys didn't turn out as good as we thought they were going to be. And I just think it's dangerous for the Saints to think that way. But as you say, you can't reset the cap in 1 year. Yeah, you got to get under the number. What are they, 36 million over? Is that right? Right now?
I'd have to check, but I thought it was in the 50s.
Yeah, maybe I'm even underselling it. But, like, you're not getting – and if you don't want to touch Derek Carr's contract because you are either going to cut bait with him as a post-June 1st cut or you want one more year and then to cut bait with him, if you're not touching his contract, you're touching a whole bunch of others and to get under that cap number just when that's before you sign anybody this year. So it's a mess. It's going to take more than 1 year to fix.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we'll see what they do with Carr, but I think eating that just at once might be the best way for them to go. Now, it doesn't really save money this year, but if you have such a chunk of, if you have pretty much all of it off your books in 2026, that just gives you so many more options rather than cutting him in 26, save $30 million, but you'd still have a $20 million dead. I think here,
I'm trying to get this thing to come up 54 million. You're right. So it's
right.
Yeah.
So, but could you go to his page and see what it would be in 26? What's that? So it would be, they would save 32, but they'd still have 28 million in dead money if they waited until after this season to cut it.
That's a lot better than the 50 million and 1 million this year that they would.
It is, but if you just take your medicine this year, then you don't have to worry about that 28 in 2026. Like, you can just start. You can do a lot to start clean, and I think that's, it's more appealing there. I think, but I don't know. Well, so tell me what they're doing at quarterback if they get rid of Derek Carr. That's.
Well, at that point, do you give Spencer Rattler another year and just say, look, if it's a disaster and you're 3-14, well, then we've got a nice high pick to pick a quarterback in 2026.
Right.
Or do you try to go get somebody else? I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think if you want to be competitive next year, the idea is you need Derek Carr playing quarterback because he's the only path to a respectable season, much less a playoff season. So.
But what is your aim? If you're the same, is your aim just respectability and just be a team that can, kind of squeak into the playoffs, or you want to be? Do we want to be at Radio Row in the San Francisco Bay Area next year talking about the Saints in the Super Bowl, which seems highly unlikely?
Yeah.
But
well, look,
or in LA in
Jeff
2 years.
Duncan will tell you, and he has said this on the Saints Insider many times before, that it is important for the Saints to be respectable because they rely on ticket sales and season ticket sales more than most teams. It's part of the reason that they can do this with the cap because they are a cash-rich franchise. But if they don't sell the tickets, they're not, you're not in New York or LA or even Dallas or Chicago or Washington where you have a bunch of corporate dollars, right? You have to rely on those tickets and merchandise sales to kind of balance the budget, so to speak. And you're not doing that if you're 3-14. Like you're already seeing. We'll see what happens, but I think one big storyline in this offseason is the Saints have a very long 20-plus year season ticket sellout streak. Right. And they may find a way to get there. I don't know, but I have some doubts that happens again next year just because the apathy is already setting in.
Yeah, I was at dinner the other day, and I heard two fans talking about it. It was like, they're like, is there still even a streak? Like, he was talking about a few years ago when he got the email that it was his turn to buy season tickets, and he was, very excited about it. And now he just kind of shrugged. I wanted to go over and be like, "Excuse me, sir, do you still have your tickets? Have you given?" But I just let him eat dinner in peace. But
You got to be the bulldog.
He might have had something to say.
Yeah.
My son-in-law is a good barometer. He's got 4 Saints season tickets. He's had season tickets for at least 15 years. If he lets them go, they're in trouble. I will let y'all know.
I'm curious to know of the people listening, if you have season tickets, put it in the chat. Are you keeping them? Are you getting rid of them? Or is there someone out there who doesn't have season tickets and is thinking this is the time to jump in because there's probably not nearly as long of a wait list as there used to be. So, whatever the case might be, let us know in the chat. Anybody who's listening, what you have to say about that. I do think that they're a little bit different than some franchises where they can't just say, "That's it. We're going 2-15 and we're getting Arch Manning in 2026." I don't. that might happen anyway because the roster's a mess. But I don't think that they will go and specifically swallow that poison pill.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break on the Saints Insider Live. Trying to line up a couple guests. Rod Walker hard at work as usual, and we will see what we can come up with here on Radio Row, coming to you live from the Convention Center right after this.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. This time, we're talking all things Superdome. First, we'll chat with Steve Farrago, NFL Director of Event Operation, about how he and his team start work way ahead of time to make sure the Dome is game day ready on Super Bowl Sunday. Then, Evan Holmes, the GM of the Superdome, talks Dome renovations and takes me on the coolest escalator ride of my life. So, stay tuned in.
Something went wrong. Yes. That's northwest, right? Naperville, kind of like.
Well, north, it's not the northern. It's more western. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Oak Brook is west. That's due west. Oak Brook, Elmhurst, Villa Park.
It's by
Lombard.
Oh no, I think it's just Zach's. I think it's okay.
So you're a Bears fan?
Broncos, actually. I lived in Colorado from 5 to 12, so.
Oh, okay.
Nuggets.
So would it be good for the Bears to move out to Arlington Heights, or would you like to see them stay?
No, I think they would.
I hope they stay by the lake. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Rab if you've been longer, but.
So do you? I mean, if somebody, I don't have to write anything till late tonight when the gymnastics meet takes place. Oh yeah. And I'm coming back tomorrow morning for the thing with Jaden, and I'll slide. How long are we doing this until?
At least
I want to see too where you go in for NFL experience. That's what their press conference is going to be tomorrow. Inside the NFL experience, which is not open until 3 today. I was shocked by that.
it's 3 every day. It's 1 yesterday.
It's 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's Saturday. That's a cool thing. If you get to go over there, I remember going to the one that was here last time. I went in there. Marv Levy was giving a chalk talk. It was like, oh, listen to Marv Levy, what he has to say. Where are the Eagles practicing?
The Eagles are practicing at the Saints and better.
Saints. So no exotic locale for you. It's where you go all the time.
Yeah, no. For this week, only like the Super Bowl only allows a pool reporter. One for it, so it's Nikki Jabala from the Washington Post. She's the pool reporter for the Eagles, and then Luke is doing the Chiefs at 2 a.m. But they have availability. They don't have availability today, but they had it at their hotel, and that was great. There's so much access. Guys were just like at tables. You could just like.
Oh yeah. I went to one of those last time the Super Bowl was here.
Chair of the host committee. Perfect. And are you at Energy?
I am at Energy.
Okay, awesome. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
I can tap out. I can depart. That's fine. I enjoyed. I don't want you to be all lonely today.
Yes.
Name sounds familiar.
He's two-time high school basketball player of the year. He's coach at Newman.
Okay.
They won like 3 or 4 national championships. And the kid, number 1 basketball player in the country, got to sign with Houston.
Yeah.
One of his kids who left and went to wherever he went. Playing like he's moving around.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean,
Cool. That's why I'm texting you. All right. I gotta go.
We'll make sure this is not upside down.
yes.
It's been upside down, and I look at it and it looks right because I can read it. You know?
It is chairman of the host committee. That's the official.
Yeah,
title,
chair of the host committee. If you don't want to say chairman, because that may not, Believe me, I've
chairperson.
I've been hit with it all, man.
I'm good.
Hey, I'm Matt, by the way.
Hey, Marcus Brown, right? Good to meet you.
Matt's one of our Saints beat writers.
All right.
For all of you.
Yeah, sure. Welcome back to the Saints Insider Podcast, live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. Pleased to be joined now by Marcus Brown, who is the chairman of the New Orleans Super Bowl Host Committee.
That's correct.
So, Marcus, thank you for joining us, first of all.
Glad to be here,
it's
man.
It's a busy day, although I imagine at this point the work is just about coming to the finish line. Like, if you're the hay's got to be in the barn, right?
A lot of the work has been done, and frankly, this is the most exciting time. I mean, if you're around the city, the buzz is high. The activities are just starting to hit their zenith. I mean, it's a fun thing to look at happen if you've been a part of the planning process.
The planning process. When did it start? How does it start? How many Zoom calls are there where people are just throwing out ideas before anything is actually done?
Oh, the pain of the Zoom calls. Look, this starts over about 14, 15 months ago. For many of the members of the administrative part of the host committee, which is the Great New Orleans Sports Foundation, they started when they bid on this in 2018. We got this game in 18. We originally was supposed to get it in 24. It got pushed to 25.
7 years ago, yeah.
It's been a while. But I've been involved for about 14, 15 months. And the early part of the planning obviously includes making sure that we execute on the commitments we make in our bid when we win the bid to do the game.
Moving the game a year, I know there was a little bit of notice on that, but
Yeah.
how much of a curveball was that?
Wasn't too bad, but if you all recall, the NFL extended its season from 16 games to 17 games. If we had had the Super Bowl last year, it would have conflicted with Mardi Gras. Nothing conflicts with Mardi Gras, not even the Super Bowl. So we got pushed out to the next year. It actually gave us a little bit more time to plan, a little bit more time to get ready. So it's been a little bit of a good thing, yeah.
Yeah. What's something that you wanted to bring out in this game that maybe hasn't been present in previous New Orleans Super Bowls? It has been 12 years. It's the longest gap for the city. and I know that we take a lot of pride here in putting this game on the right way. So what was something that you wanted to come out as people visit the city and really feel in the Super Bowl?
Well, two things. One is the game was here in 2013. We certainly want people to come here and have an incredible time, enjoy all the things that make New Orleans special. You know, the food, the music, you know, the culture, the welcoming people. All those things are staples. People expect to get that. But adding something to the Super Bowl that's never been done before is something that we wanted to do. And this year, there's a Super Bowl Mardi Gras style parade on Saturday starting at 10 a.m. There's never been a Super Bowl parade in 58 years of the Super Bowl. And it's going to have roughly 20 floats, bands, marching clubs, just like a flat out Mardi Gras parade, throws, the whole bit. We think that's a unique piece of New Orleans that we've never been able to deliver during Super Bowl, that we'll deliver it this time.
Yeah, looking forward to that tomorrow morning. And like I said, I don't want to make it sound like all the work's done, because it's not. No. You've got the parade and obviously then game day on Sunday. But to this point, we're through Super Bowl week just about.
Right.
You're through all the preparations and everything. How would you grade yourselves? I mean, have you started that evaluation process and say, how did we do?
Well, we're going to be graded on in two respects. One, I would grade the support and the efforts of the people involved as an A++. I mean, corporations, the community organizations, all the volunteers. I mean, people have come in, put all their agendas aside, and they have been focused on making sure this is a great Super Bowl. The real grade will be, as you know, we are tied with Miami at 11 for hosting the most number of Super Bowls. If we get number 12 and break that tie, that's the ultimate check on success. So we're looking forward to having a great game, but we really want number 12.
I'm sure you know the history of Super Bowl IV. When it first came here, there was like an argument at the owners' meetings, and the editor of the Times-Picayune was there, and he had Al Hurt with him and was arguing with the mayor of Miami to get it. I mean, this is a little bit of a rivalry we've got going on for 60 years now.
It is a rivalry, but I think there's some things about us that make us different and unique and special when it comes to the Super Bowl. Miami is a great city, you know, and I'm sure they've done a great job hosting the game. People who come here, 6,000 credentialed media professionals are in town. You know, they go to every Super Bowl. Fans who are consistent participants, they will tell you that there is no city quite like New Orleans. You know, we talk about the food, music, culture, and all that. Now, all that is absolutely true. What makes us really special, though, is the ability to have this game in a city that's walkable. You can walk from the convention center to the French Quarter to the stadium and do that without never get in the car. Miami is a wonderful city, but when you get ready to go to that stadium, you better have some Uber cash to do that, because you can't walk to that stadium.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And before we let you go, Marcus, what is that conversation like to say, hey, can you come back to New Orleans? I know the next three are the ones that are already confirmed. Right. You have Bay Area, then LA, and then Atlanta. Do you start to give years to the NFL and say, hey, look, Mardi Gras in 2030, it's this date, and we could, you know, I mean, is that conversation starting already?
One of the conversations is consistently ongoing. There are a couple of things that we do. First of all, Miss Benson and the Saints. You know, the game doesn't come here unless you have an owner who's engaged and who can convince the NFL that this is a place to have the game. And she has been driving towards number 12 since number 11 was announced, that entire organization. So we've been pushing behind them and supporting them in that effort, but that's a big piece of it. So we think that we have a great opportunity. We certainly have provided the NFL with what we think is available dates for us. But if you've listened to what Commissioner Goodell has said since he's been here, he said yesterday that he thinks the NFL will be back for a Super Bowl. He didn't say when. So we want to really have that discussion in greater detail as soon as we're done with this. You know, you gotta run through the tape. You gotta finish this game. You gotta finish strong. And then I think the conversations about number 12 here will really ratchet up another level.
What's your favorite part of this, Radio Row? And my kids are coming to the NFL experience this afternoon, so they're pumped about that. What do you like about this pre-week?
You know, if people have the opportunity to come in Radio Row in particular, just to all the shows, the podcasts, the entertainers, the commentators that you get to see and hear on TV every day, they're all here. They're all here in like one football field sized room. And it's just like walking through your dream space of, oh, look, I see this person over here. It's
You
an
gotta pinch yourself every 30
incredible,
seconds,
it's an incredible place to be. And they're talking about our city. You know, every conversation here is about our region, our city, you know, the Super Bowl. And so it's football, but it's football from a New Orleans perspective. And I think it makes it really special for anybody who's here to be able to spend a little time here.
All right, he's Marcus Brown. He is the chairman of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. Also, with Entergy in your day job, I guess we'll call it, or you.
That's my day job. You know, I will resume my day job on Monday at about noon.
And it'll be a little bit of a letdown, but I'm sure that's okay after all
It's
of this.
okay.
Great Super Bowl week. Appreciate you stopping by and joining us.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you. All right.
Marcus Brown of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee, hanging out with us here on the Saints Insider Podcast Live. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl host committee parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl host committee parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Dudowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out.
Back on Radio Row here on the Saints Insider Podcast. Our thanks to Marcus Brown. He's in charge of putting this whole thing. I can't even imagine being in charge of putting on a Super Bowl. I mean, I was stressed out putting together a Super Bowl special section for a newspaper. He had to put on the whole damn thing.
All right.
He seemed very composed, though.
He did.
So,
Well, you have to. Where do you even start? I mean, now look, there's
huge
hundreds,
team
if
of
not
people.
thousands of people helping him, right? I mean, like, he's got an army of volunteers. He's got people who are probably in charge of each specific thing. But just the enormity of this, I think, has to be intimidating.
Well, lots of people have to volunteer to help you put it on, you know, for sure. And this is the city to do it. I mean, they're used to hosting big events. So
Yeah. I think it was probably off the record because he didn't say it on camera, but he did give us a possible date of the next New Orleans Super Bowl. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 12 years. They hope. They hope.
That would be nice. I've really enjoyed this week. This is my first one of these, so.
Yeah, it's a little bit surreal, right? Like there are definitely some of those pinch me moments, like where your head's on a swivel and you see one famous player, famous person, and you turn your head and there's three more over there and you forget about the first one. So that's how it goes. All right.
and then you see a walking pickle.
There is a giant pickle walking
Yeah.
around. SpongeBob and Patrick were here. Who was here earlier this week? That was.
SpongeBob and Patrick.
Well, I got to talk to but that was what my wife was more excited about than anything, is that I talked to the Old Spice guy yesterday.
With his shirt off.
Yes, with his shirt. Well, he had it, as he was quick to point out, he had his shirt tied over. It was covering his back.
Oh, okay.
But, the fully in character 100% of the time. I was flustered, I'll admit it. I was. Okay. This is a pick show. We haven't given that many picks. We haven't gotten Scott Ravelay's pick. Scott, on the LSU Insider podcast back, I think we were probably talking about LSU USC. It was like Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And we asked for Super Bowl predictions on that podcast. And you were the only one. I think, Matt, on the Saints Insider podcast, you did say Chiefs 3-peat.
I did, yeah. I had Chiefs Packers like way back in the day.
Well, Rab had Chiefs Eagles. So he did nail it. He was the one person who did.
And I wanted to say Lions, but I just couldn't remember. I had the spur of the moment. Are the Lions supposed to be good again? And I said,
Don't
the
take
Eagles.
away from yourself,
no, I
man.
know.
You called it.
I did say the Chiefs and Eagles. I wasn't going out too far of a limb, I'll admit, but one of the few times I was right. So
And you also said at the time that you're not betting against Patrick Mahomes. Has any of that changed?
no. That has not changed. As everyone has said, they have certainly not seemed as dominant as they have been in the past. It seemed like they'd be a little more vulnerable, and the Eagles have a lot of great characterizations, but the Chiefs have the best coach and they have the best quarterback. Not that Hurts is bad, but Patrick Mahomes is obviously already a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, I've not wavered in that pick, and I would like to have seen it be the Bills and the Lions or the Vikings, because you would have been someone who would have won their first Super Bowl, and that would have been cool to me. But this is a chance for history, and I think the Chiefs will make history. I think a late game drive for the winning points, they win 30-27.
All right. Bills Lions would have been, I think, a dream Super Bowl for a lot of reasons. We would have had to lock down these folding tables, though, like if the Bills were here.
That's right.
I gotta say, maybe I just like with Kellen Moore, it's been great in terms of. Like, I've been very happy with it. The Eagles have offered a lot more coverage.
Yeah, that's been a nice plus for you guys covering the game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think like the Chiefs normally would have that many storylines because they've been here so many times, but the three-peat is such an obvious one. Patrick Mahomes chasing greatness, and you're talking about in a place, by the way, and again, we're biased, but I kind of feel like an all-time great quarterback, your resume kind of needs to include a New Orleans Super Bowl. Look at the guys who have done it. Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, Brett Favre won his only Super Bowl here. Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl here. Like, it's kind of a connection between the all-time great quarterbacks who have all won one in New Orleans. I'm sure there's a couple who haven't. Steve Young.
That's right.
It's not
Len Dawson.
Len Dawson won one here.
The Chiefs, yeah.
Jim Plunkett.
Jim
I don't know
Plunkett.
if he's an all-time great, but
He's not in the Hall of Fame. I think
He's
that still drives me wild that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
That reminds me. I do want to talk about this, but I want to say in about 15 minutes we got Jimmy Graham coming on the show, so that'll be a lot of fun.
That's very good.
You're gonna have to move that mic way up for Jimmy, but Jimmy Graham's gonna be on the show here in a few minutes, so stay tuned for that. You talk about the Hall of Fame, and it was kind of a strange class last night. I have to say, it was only a 4-man class. Usually there's 5. There was only 4. It was Sterling Sharp, Jared Allen, Eric Allen, and Antonio Gates. I almost missed the last one. Antonio Gates, who in my opinion might be the most qualified of any of those guys to make it. But it struck me a little bit. First of all, now Eric Allen did play for the Saints for a little while, but Jari Evans, who was, obviously the Saints main candidate, did not get in, and neither did either of the 2 native New Orleanians, Eli Manning or Reggie Wayne. What did you guys make of the class?
It was surprising. The guy I actually might be most surprised by was Luke Kuechly not
Luke
making
Kuechly
it.
didn't make it. I thought he'd make Adam Vinatieri didn't make it.
I thought Luke Kuechly would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, maybe he doesn't have the longevity, but God, I don't necessarily know. Like, he did more in those amount of years than other guys do in their whole, like, the guys who make 12 years and have a lengthy career. So I think he was the one I was most surprised by, and I could tell with Eli, just based on the debate on Twitter and stuff, that maybe it wasn't going to be a slam dunk. He did it on his first try, but I think Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer, and I know everyone said, well, what did he do besides beat Brady twice? Well, he beat Brady twice. I think that's a pretty strong argument.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, and I can't remember who said it, but the reason I started thinking about this, you said Jim Plunkett. Somebody said, well, what separates Eli Manning from Jim Plunkett? And I don't know that I have a great answer for that, although the fact that it was Brady twice and the fact that it was the undefeated Patriots in the first one, I don't, like, is his famous name giving him more of a chance here, Rab? What do you make of Eli Manning's candidacy?
I mean, you look at his regular season record is pretty pedestrian, right? I mean, it's exactly 500 or close to it. But God, that was a monumental upset. I mean, that was what they did, beating the undefeated Patriots, and of course this amazing play with the ball stuck to the receiver's head was
David Tyree.
Yeah. Thank you. I was going to say Tyree Kill. So that's not right. That was to me, it's a little akin to Joe Namath and the Jets beating the Colts in
Joe
Super
Namath
Bowl
doesn't
III.
win Super Bowl III, is he in the Hall of Fame?
No, he's probably not. But that was a monumental upset, and this was a monumental upset too. And in Super Bowl history, those are probably 1 and 1A. You know, so it's a I think he gets in eventually. Reggie Wayne, I think, definitely deserves to get in. And Vinatieri, my brother is an old high school kicker from way back at Parkview Baptist, and he was incensed that Adam Vinatieri didn't get in. He's definitely one of the great kickers of all time. But kickers don't get as much respect. There aren't that many kickers. When Morton Anderson made it, he was only like the third or fourth kicker to get in. So it's not a lot of them in there. He'll get in eventually, but I don't know. I thought this class lacked a little star power.
It does. It's also, I haven't checked this, but it's got to be. Is it the first Pro Football Hall of Fame class ever without a Super Bowl title in it? I mean, in the Super Bowl era, there's not a single Super Bowl title among those four guys. So, I don't think any of them are undeserving. I just find that interesting. But we talk about Reggie Wayne too. Like I actually think he has a better case than Eli statistically.
I do too.
There is some pushback. There's never been two receivers from the same team in the Hall of Fame, which to me is kind of a stupid. Like in this era of pro football, why can't there be? But there hasn't been. And Marvin Harrison, of course, is already in the Hall of Fame.
That's Reggie Wayne after Marvin Harrison retired. Like, was the man?
Right. He spent all those years as,
he became the number one option after Harrison left, and he was awesome.
So that shouldn't mean anything. That should absolutely not mean anything.
No.
You know?
No. I mean, I think that's like trying to take credit away from Rob Gronkowski because he played with Tom Brady. It doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. We are waiting on Jimmy Graham here live on Radio Row. Did you see the video of Sterling and Shannon Sharp?
I did, yeah.
What a great moment that was. It was cool. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it's available on.
So that's what they do now, right? Instead of the guy, the head of the Pro Football Hall of Fame knocking on the door,
knock anymore. Yeah,
someone is picked to tell you.
But
how nice that must be.
Yeah. In this case, Sterling Sharp goes over to Shannon's house. Shannon is waiting in his basement for him. It sounds like a horror movie. He was waiting. It's like a finished basement. He's just standing down there, and Sterling Sharp walks down, and there's Shannon in his gold jacket and says, "Welcome to the club, your Pro Football Hall of Fame."
Oh, that's nice. I'll have to go look that up.
And
that's
they
nice.
sat down, and I thought Shannon Sharp gave a very nice speech about what Sterling meant to him growing up and how he had to blaze the trail and he had to do everything himself, and that's why it was more special than even when Shannon himself went in and Sterling answered by saying, "Well, it's about time I had to follow you into something." You know, so it was a cool moment. Like, but it was a strange class. No Super Bowls. I for sure thought Kuechly would get in. I thought Vinatieri would get in, who kicked the game-winning kick here at Super Bowl 36. So maybe the omissions were more surprising than. I didn't have a problem with anybody who did get in. Maybe the omissions were more surprising.
Yeah, no, and I mean next year's class is the big one. Drew Brees is eligible to get in. Yeah. I can't remember the exact order of the list, but Schefter put out a list of names, and I was like, those top three are all. It was Drew. Let me try and find it. But
surely Drew's is a first ballot guy, right?
It's got to be. I mean, come on. Again, we're speaking from a regional and local bias here and everything, and not just that. It's not even that we're sitting here saying rah Saints, but it's just you hear about him so often. You see what an impact he had on this franchise and this community. Like, he's got to be. He also had, for a while, every NFL passing record there was to have.
Right.
Tom Brady broke most of those, but Drew Brees did have them for a while.
Yeah, he finished second or third, right? Yeah. And a lot of these things. Speaking of local, regional people we talk about, does Andrew Whitworth get in eventually?
That's an interesting case. I don't know that he's the first ballot guy, but
no,
he's
got the resume. He was he had longevity. I think he won Walter Payton. I think he won the Walter Payton Award, and played on a Super Bowl champion. He played a Super Bowl champion. Then he retired his last year.
Rode off into the sunset.
He rode off in the sunset. Yeah. So I think it's somewhat similar to Alan Faneca, who was a guard. I think it was a little harder for a guard to get in. But Whitworth. Yeah, he's got the whole package. It takes a lot for an offensive lineman, but I think I'd like to see him. I like to think he will hopefully get it. If Kevin Mawai got in, who I'm happy for that he got in, if Kevin Mawai got in, I think Andrew Whitworth should definitely be in.
If you look at, to your point though, Matt, like, did you find out it was Breeze?
Yeah, it says Breeze, Larry Fitzgerald, and Philip Rivers was the other one I thought was kind of a long. I think Philip Rivers.
Jason Witten. I mean,
Jason
Witten here.
Yeah, for sure.
Frank Gore,
Julian Edelman, LaShawn McCoy.
LaShawn McCoy is not making the Hall of Fame.
No, I don't think so. But to your point, these classes get crowded. They only let 5 in a year max, right?
Right.
And I don't know, for a guy like Andrew Whitworth or Jari Evans, even Eli Manning, like at some point, you're going to start to get squeezed out, and you have to wait longer until there is a class, kind of like this year, where you can kind of say, okay, let's let these 5 guys in this year because they haven't had a chance to get in yet.
Right. No, I mean, it would be really special if Jari and Drew were able to go in together.
That would be very cool.
I don't know. Jari's had an interesting one because, you wonder if people almost penalize his success because of what Drew was able to do.
Which I also
quarterback. I think it's a horrendous argument, but I think that's kind of how people view it, and especially like that position is not their glamorous position. Like I remember after Jay Gruden's second season in Washington, I hit the bell. One was they asked him how, hey, like you've had 2 drafts here, how do you think it's gone? He's like, well, one of the drafts, our wide receiver in the first round, like played 2 games, and the other one was a guard. So, just like he completely dismissed Brandon Sheriff, who was a very good player, and just it's not the position that gets a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, it's true. I tend to think that Saints offense in 2009 Super Bowl year, 2010, 2011, it was a revolutionary offense. Even in an era when you started to see more of these run and shoot, high tempo offenses, like that one was a revolution. And to me, if Drew Brees is the only Hall of Famer from that group, that's a shame. I think Jari Evans deserves to be in there. I mean, the linemen are just as important in that offense as they are in any other offense. He was the dominant one.
Well said. But you're right. If it's 5 a year, they should. Why did they stop at 4 this year? Why did they only have 4 this year?
And again, when you had a guy like Kuechly or Vinatieri who easily could have been, no one would have blinked if you let them in.
If there's that many guys, you have so many people in football, right? And it should be hard to make a Hall of Fame. The College Football Hall of Fame, you have to be an All-American. You can't just be an all-conference guy 3 years or something like that. You have to have been an All-American. That's for a player. That's the minimum standard. So they should have been a veteran or something. I don't know. If it's going to be 5 and there's so many people in football, there's such a large roster.
I think Sterling Sharp was the Veterans Committee, right?
Yeah.
Like they actually did do that.
I mean, I do like that the NFL is choosy. Like you look at the Basketball Hall of Fame. Basketball Hall of Fame is a joke because they let in everyone. Like I do like that the NFL is. I feel like it's the happy medium between baseball, which I think is too strict, and then the NBA, which I think is too allowing. And the NFL is typically that happy medium, but normally you get some years like this year where it's not so much that there's only they're just other deserving guys on the ballot. I don't understand how they didn't get the votes necessary to meet the.
When you put it like that, and when you do, if you are limited to 5 a year, which I think is a good number, it's exclusive, but it's not crazy. Why would you only have 3 this year? Because he had 4, but again, Sterling Sharp was the Veterans Committee. So why would you only have 3? When you had and again, it's not like there weren't other good candidates. Not, even forgetting Reggie Wayne and Eli Manning, who I think will both eventually get in, but Adam Vinatieri, Luke Kuechly, these guys were. I think everybody agrees they're Hall of Fame players.
That's my point. The NFL is so big. There's so many players that more than on a baseball team, certainly any more than on an NBA team, you need to have make it 5. Okay, look, don't stop at 4 because you're going to start to get this backlog, and I would hate for an Eli Manning to get squeezed out, and certainly a Jari Evans, yeah, I agree with Matt. It has seemed it's been like a happy medium between baseball being too strict and basketball being too easy, quote unquote, to get in. But this year, I think they kind of missed the mark a little bit, if you ask me, because there was definitely some star power out there that they left out.
Yeah, between that and the Man of the Year, I was just perplexed by some of that last night. I won't get started on
You're
this
still
again,
you're never going to let that one go, are you?
I'm telling you, I consider myself to be fairly prepared in most things, and I at least understand the chances of something unlikely happening, but I was floored that Cam Jordan was not Man of the Year. By the end, if you had told me earlier in the week, I'd have said, like, okay, well, I don't know the other candidates, but by the time
everything pointed to it, yeah.
Speaking of floored, there's a man over there wearing a Logan Thomas jersey, and it is not Logan Thomas. So,
I mean, Logan Thomas here wearing a Logan Thomas jersey might have been even weirder, right?
It's true, but I would at least get it.
Yeah,
Some people who know who he is.
It's almost like a name tag.
Yeah. It's like that Geico commercial, well, maybe 10 years ago now, more, but it's like, you're all-pro linebacker, Brian Orakpo. It's like you had to say who it was because no one else would know otherwise. So
funny stuff. You never know what you're going to see here. We are hoping to see Jimmy Graham here in just a couple of minutes. Let's take a break for those couple of minutes, and hopefully we will have Jimmy shortly after we come back.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Jadowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. This time, we're talking all things Superdome. First, we'll chat with Steve Farrago, NFL Director of Event Operation, about how he and his team start work way ahead of time to make sure the dome is game day ready on Super Bowl Sunday. Then, Evan Holmes, the GM of the Superdome, talks dome renovations and takes me on the coolest escalator ride of my life. So, stay tuned in. Hey y'all, I'm Robin Barnes, the New Orleans Songbird, and we are here for the making of Super Bowl 59 at the beautiful Superdome. This will be the 11th Super Bowl in New Orleans. New Orleans is known for its vibrant culture, rich history, and amazing music, if I do say so myself. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. This episode is all about the Super Bowl 59 Ambassador Program, presented by Chevron. Ambassadors are the volunteers who are responsible for the welcoming of hundreds of thousands of fans and visitors to New Orleans during Super Bowl week. First, we'll talk to Craig Forshag, Director of Sales for the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and Super Bowl 59 Host Committee, about what makes this ambassador program unique. Then, Leah Brown, Public Affairs Manager of Chevron's Gulf of Mexico Business Unit, tells us about their partnership on this program. Let's get started.
Back on Radio Row here for this Friday, February the 7th. Zach Ewing with Scott Rabelais and Matthew Paris. This is the Saints Insider Live podcast. We're brought to you by Ochsner Health. They're the official medical provider of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. As we soldier on here, waiting for Rod Walker is going to bring Jimmy Graham over here. I'd like to see Rod Walker try to force Jimmy Graham over here. I don't think he's physically going to force him, but he is supposed to bring him over here, and I'll bet you Jimmy will come willingly.
Yeah. This might be I covered Jimmy Graham's last year with the Saints. This might be the first time I've ever actually talked to him because he was never in the locker room.
Yeah, it's good, though. I think Jimmy has been doing some interesting stuff. We have to ask him about it. He's like sailing around the Arctic Ocean and stuff like that.
For preparing for July 2025 to prepare to sail around the ocean. And Luke wrote a wonderful story about getting ready for that trip, but also like his the way he was able to stay in shape between being out of the NFL and not when the Saints eventually called him in 2023, because that's kind of the crazy thing about Jimmy Graham's career, is that he even ended up back in New Orleans in the first place. It was it seemed like he was done. And
yeah, you talk about never talking. My first day as specifically the editor in charge of the Saints coverage was, maybe it wasn't my first day, but it was my first day like actually down in New Orleans, actually doing the job. And the Saints announced that they were signing Jimmy Graham, and it was like, what? Jimmy Graham hadn't even played the year before.
All right.
He was a pretty good player for the Saints. He was he didn't play a lot, but when he was in there, that dude was a weapon in the red zone.
No, it was very weird because it did not seem like the coaching staff put a lot of faith in him to produce, and then whenever he got on the field, he produced. It was a very weird dance of, all right, how much should they play Jimmy? How much are they not? Right, what are they waiting for, especially in the red zone? And you think about that team specifically, they were so bad in the red zone, and then it turns out it helps to put like a 6'6" guy who was just always very good down there. So
yes. I'm reading. This isn't the main story Luke wrote about this, but the one about the Arctic. He's not sailing across the Arctic. He's rowing across the Arctic. Let me emphasize that. The crew will sleep no more than 90 minutes at a time, and will need to consume more than 8,000 calories per day.
Golly. Rowing across the Arctic.
That's 4 days of eating for a normal person. That's like, isn't it 2,000 calories a day? That
it seems like there's going to be a book there or a documentary or something.
He also is doing like a bunch of cycling.
Yes, I think Luke's initial story was on cycling. Was that's how he stayed in shape and did like marathons across the world. Or
yeah. Here it is, December 16th. I mean, I think he's like attended the Tour de France and maybe has even tried to qualify for like some lower level of these multi-stage cycling races. So when you start talking about that stuff, I mean, the NFL is different. You need explosiveness, and the athletes are incredible and stuff. But as far as stamina goes, it's got nothing on that stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's... And if you've ever seen Jimmy Graham, he's like one of the most inbuilt... it looks like he's always in incredible shape, but he's just one of the most like freakishly built athletes I've ever seen.
That's why I was waiting to see Rod force him over.
Right, yeah.
Can 5'7" Rod Walker block 6'7" Jimmy Graham into
quite persuasive?
Right.
I got a question for you guys. The history of the Super Bowl. This is the 11th Super Bowl.
11th Super Bowl in New Orleans.
Most of them have been blowouts. Most of them have been blowouts. Two of the biggest blowouts Super Bowl. The two biggest blowouts Super Bowl history have been in New Orleans. The Bears beat the Patriots 46-10 in Super Bowl 20. And the 49ers crushed the Broncos 55-10. But the last two have been really great games. The last two here, the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, beating the Rams 20-17, and the Ravens beat the 49ers 34-31 the last time the game was here. Everyone is picking a close Super Bowl. He says it's a one point spread. And none of our picks. I won't give anybody's picks away who haven't given one yet. But none of our picks are more than a one score pick. But the history of the game is often that it gets kind of away from one team or the other. Does no one think? Is there any circumstance under which this could become a lopsided game either way? I mean, a two score game or more.
I could see it, particularly with the Eagles, as we kind of mentioned earlier. But I think it's to the NFL's credit, especially in this era of the CBA, where the Super Bowls have been closer. You haven't seen a lot of blowouts. I mean, Tampa, Kansas City, that was one, but
Go back before that. You almost got to go. Maybe Seattle, Denver was the
yeah.
You know, I mean,
thanks for reminding me.
Well, they got to win a couple years after that, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, there hasn't. That is what I was going to answer that with. Is I think even in New Orleans Super Bowl history, the first 7, or no, the first 8, excepting just the last 2, the first 8, the closest game was 10 points. And that was Super Bowl 9, which was 16-6.
16-6 wasn't a great game.
Were never really in it. It
right.
was 2-0 at halftime.
That's right. 2-0.
So, but I think if you look at Super Bowls overall, not just in New Orleans, that is the way that it goes. Is the games, as parity has increased, the games have become more competitive. Now, of course, you're not always going to get a close game. And I actually think maybe I don't want to. Okay. Well, Jimmy Graham may not be coming. I don't know. We'll see. You got grabbed by another interview. We'll see if he comes by. Look, that's like
Kevin O'Connell.
That's life on Radio Row. That NFL Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell, walking by. I'll go ahead and give my pick now then, okay? Because I probably have. You said nobody had a 2-score game. I came very close.
Yours is the biggest spread of our 12 picks.
Eagles to win 27-19, and I think, my thought process here is number one. Again, if it's a close game, you're not betting against Mahomes late in the game. But if the Eagles get out to a lead, they are a very difficult team to come back on, even for a team like the Chiefs. I do think the Chiefs, baked into the scores, they're going to settle for a few field goals. I think Harrison Butker's going to be busy. I think that Eagles defensive line is going to make it difficult to run the ball in the red zone. So I have a little bit of that baked in. And I do think there's a pathway for the Eagles to have a 2-score lead, and the Chiefs are in chase mode. Maybe they do get it to 1 score late, but then it's, they just kind of run out of time, and Philadelphia is able to salt the game away, like we've seen them do so many times in the second half of the season.
But it's hard to go out on that limb, especially with these two teams, to say, oh, I think this could be kind of a lopsided game. No one really,
it's true.
8 points is still a 1-score game. So it's not that, it's not without the realm of
you also think about the Chiefs' regular season. They've been has every one of their games been a 1-score game outside the Broncos loss?
They lost to the Bills by 9. Their losses were both 2-score games, and they've had some 2-score wins. The Saints.
Right. That's true. Never mind.
They had I think they beat the 49ers by 10 or 12 points. They've had a couple of games where they won more easily, but they thrive in close games. But what if they can't keep it close? That's what happened against Buffalo. They needed to get the ball back, and they couldn't get the ball back, and Josh Allen scored to put the game away. We're talking the regular season game. That's the pathway to beating them.
Well, right, and you can see the Eagles wearing them down with their everybody says they got the better lines, and Saquon Barkley, they play keep away. As is what you're kind of probably predicting, is that they kind of play keep away from Mahomes and the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, Barkley. I think you could easily see this be a pretty low scoring first half. Maybe it's in the 13-6 neighborhood or something, where the Eagles they have that lead, and then all of a sudden you are tasked with stopping that running game that seemingly nobody can stop, even when they know it's coming.
Yeah, no, it's the Eagles have shown that they're capable of blowing teams out. They're that good. I was also really impressed if you think about their start. They started 2-2, had a really weird loss to the Falcons. Things were rocky there, but
when they played the Saints, they were not.
Yeah,
people were not thinking of them as a Super Bowl team, right?
They were 2-2 after 4 weeks. The Eagles were, and that included the win over the Saints. That they outplayed the Saints, but they needed a last-minute touchdown, a huge play from Dallas Goedert out of nowhere, where Saints safeties ran into each other. To set up Barkley's second touchdown. So they easily could have been 1-3. They went the week after that, and they got pummeled at Tampa Bay. Now, they did not have A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith for that game. That makes a difference. Right. I think they were missing a couple of defensive players, too. So they got healthy. That's part of it. And as it relates to the Saints, I don't want to – I always feel like sometimes when we talk about their problems, it's not like the injuries did not have an effect. Of course they did. They're going to be healthier next year almost by default. You can't – you're just going to regress in a positive direction to having fewer injuries, and they may be more competitive just because of that. But when it pertains to the Eagles, I think they had their bye week early. They had their bye week after that Week 4 game in Tampa. They're 2-2.
Yeah.
And I believe they have only lost 1 game since then, and it was to Washington on the last play of the game, in a game that they had the lead in.
And in a game that Jalen Hurts also got hurt.
Yeah, in a game Jalen Hurts got hurt, and where A.J. Brown dropped a pass that probably puts the game away for Philly in the fourth quarter, uncharacteristically. So you're looking at a team that is about this close to being on a, what would that be, 12, 13-game winning streak. We got a doctor coming in from NeuroCatch. Is that what I'm reading here? To talk about wellness and concussion prevention or something like that? Okay. Yeah. We can get Dr. Ryan Darcy coming on the show here soon to talk about that. And if, honestly, it'd be fun to talk to him with Jimmy Graham.
Oh, my God, dude.
I mean, who better than one of his clients, the person who's experienced to say, tell me about performance health. I'm not trying to say Jimmy Graham is like not all there or something, but he's had concussions. Like that's the. I could have done that smoother. Huh?
You could have. I thought that's where you were going there.
If we get Jimmy Graham,
Yeah, here he is. Yeah. Speaking of which.
All right.
I'm going to slide out of the way for Jimmy Graham.
All right, Rab.
No, come sit right.
Jimmy Graham is here.
Oh, no. I've been on.
We've only got so many seats, yeah.
The magic of live television.
Okay, we got Jimmy just for a minute. We got to adjust the mic for you, Jimmy.
No worries.
How you been, man?
Good. Busy. It's been crazy, honestly.
Well, I do want to talk about that a little. I know we only have you for a few minutes, but first of all, what's it been like being back in New Orleans for Super Bowl week?
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. It's always bittersweet, especially when it's in your home, that you were never able to play in one. But, having it here, I think it puts on display, how well the city does with big events. And I don't think there's really a better city for the Super Bowl to be. Just from the infrastructure, you can walk everywhere, all the restaurants, everybody's having a good time, and it's just good to be back home.
How cool is it for you to come back here and finish up your career with the Saints? Looking back on it now.
Yeah, it was certainly one of the cooler moments. Especially my first touchdown back in the stadium. That's the one thing that you really can't replace when you retire. It's what you have with your teammates in the locker room, and for me as well, it's scoring a touchdown in the Superdome. There's not a better feeling. How insane that crowd goes. People chanting your name and just the joy and happiness it brings to the city and to the crowd is something that I could do for the rest of my life.
And that's that year went along. Like they really counted on you by the end of it. What did you make of kind of that evolution of how your season went along, and that it really seemed like by the end of it, they really.
I mean, I wish we figured it out a little sooner, but it was really amazing to be able to walk through that tunnel with that jersey on again, bring back all the memories that I had with all my boys, and create some new ones that were very, very special. Especially being the oldest guy on the team, and going there on the line and being one-on-one again in the red zone, and having young guys beg for help was one of the cooler experiences I've had in a while.
A lot of guys, when football ends, have trouble figuring out what to do next. You have not had that problem. You're doing a lot of different stuff. I know you're rowing across the Arctic this summer. What else you got on your plate right now? And tell us about that too.
Yeah, so I'm doing this thing called the Arctic Challenge 2025. The website's thearcticchallenge2025.org. And myself, one of my good friends, former Navy SEAL, and a couple here from New Orleans, the Huppies, we're going to be rowing across the Arctic Ocean, chasing 5 world records and trying to raise money for some local charities. One being Covenant House, which houses homeless under the age of 22, and Laureus, which introduces underprivileged kids into sports. So that is July. And so last week we had our first open sea trial, which was one of the more brutal things I've ever done. It was 155 miles, I think it was. I burned 9,000 calories a day. It's getting 3 hours of sleep a night. This is going to be one of the hardest things I've ever done. There's been, I think, 16 people to do this route before. So there's been more people to walk on the moon than have attempted this challenge. So we have a lot ahead of us.
So I think I read that you were supposed to be eating 8,000 calories a day for this, but if you were burning 9,000 calories, did you have to up your food limit? What are you eating?
So mainly what we're eating is freeze-dried food. So how I can describe this is it's like it's like a warm soupy bag full of whatever flavor they put in there, and it's not fun. Well, I mean, especially if you know, when you get off a 2-hour row at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you got to fire up a little burner while the boat's moving around and try and eat while you're just absolutely exhausted. So that'll definitely be challenging to do for 2 weeks.
They don't have that on the menu at Emerald's or Brennan's.
No.
So this was last week?
Yeah, it was last week in Miami. Yep.
So how are you here? Like, how are you
Yeah, well, I mean, I recover quick. Really, a lot of this is mostly logistics, right? This is going to be very hard physically, but obviously sleep deprivation is a big deal. But really, this is really about navigation, understanding movement of weather, currents, winds, and really boat management, fixing things, and the ability to transition between rowers. So there's a lot more involved with this than just rowing. It's so much on this boat and how much we bring, what we bring, and making sure we have the right safety equipment.
Such an amazing thing, and for an awesome cause too, as you mentioned. Do you know what's next for you after that? Do you have another challenge lined up in your head after July, or not yet?
Yeah, well, this year our company is opening up a debt fund, so we're pretty busy with some of that. But after the row, the idea is I'm probably going to get into the air show thing.
Okay.
So I'll be getting donated to my foundation the Clay Lacy Combat Learjet, which will most likely contact the NFL. I'd like to do at some point, especially during Salute to Service, is the national anthem flyby in this thing. It's all gray, has show smoke, and with F-16s on the wings, but I could take veterans. So it'd be cool to, at halftime, bring everybody up onto the field, honor them, and I give them the tour, during the weekend. And I'm partnering with a guy named Jared. He's got the Jet Waco. And we're going to be doing some various things in the air show business with him, which will be very interesting.
Never a dull moment with Jimmy Graham, and maybe you'll make time, and I'm sure there's like a Saints Hall of Fame invite in your future coming up too, so we'll see you around. Jimmy, thanks for stopping by, man.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, brother.
Let's go in front.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That's Jimmy Graham. That was a cool segment there here on the Saints Insider Podcast. Take a quick break. We're expecting Michael Brockers here in a few minutes as we wrap things up on Radio Row for 2025.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, president and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Jadowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out.
Saints Insider Podcast back live on Radio Row. Happy to be joined now by Dr. Ryan Darcy of NeuroCatch.
Yes.
And I'm going to let you explain it, Doctor, but NeuroCatch basically is a proactive way for caring for athletes' brains, if I'm saying that correctly.
You got it. So I come from a world where science is buried away from us all, and we use really sophisticated tools that are really not accessible. And what NeuroCatch is a portable objective scanner for your cognitive function. And we focus on the concept of performance and health. So let's start first by optimizing that supercomputer between your ears and make sure it's processing things as fast as possible. And in the event that maybe you have some sort of a hit that you're worried about concussion, then we can actually get you back to that amazing pocket spot as quick as possible.
So much of the conversation in the NFL over the last decade or two has been concussion prevention and the Guardian caps and CTE and those conversations. But you all are taking a more proactive approach to brain care. What does that look like in a day-to-day, season-to-season guy for an NFL player?
So what it looks like is really about, in medicine, if you don't, you can't treat what you can't measure. So the big problem with brain and concussion is it's been a mystery. So we want to demystify that in the same way as you can manage your cardiovascular function with a blood pressure cuff. We've created this portable scanner that objectively measures how things are going from you for a cognitive point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're worried about, that I think I rang my bell on that last tackle, that's when we can actually measure it at field side and say, you know what, you're still good. You're, you know what, we're seeing something where maybe that was a bit of a hit. Let's do the following things which we know work to help you recover and get you back on the game.
And go ahead, Matt.
How have you seen kind of the science in this field evolve? Like, is this something that's picked up rapidly throughout the last few years? Like, how long have you guys been working on this?
So that's an excellent question, and it's a point I like to make. Usually when we think about the brain, we think it's mysterious, and we think, I don't know if there's anything we can really do with that. The world has changed in the last really 5 years, and it goes back even 10 years. So what's happening right now in terms of what we can do around your brain performance and worries about concussion and other things is so rapidly changing, and it's changing because of technology. And these technologies are allowing us to actually find, okay, this works, this measures the dial. And we're here today working not only with the Lee Steinberg Brain Health party that's on Saturday, but also the NFL alumni to really raise that awareness, engage retired players and active players, allow them to go help with the high school and college level so that we actually can take command and control in the same way we performance train our bodies. We can do that for our brains.
It seems like you're optimistic. I mean, what have early returns been like? But it seems like you think this could be kind of a game changer for that space.
Oh, it is being a game changer. Yeah, we are actively helping people in terms of accelerating their performance, how fast they think by 100 milliseconds, so they can see the play and they can miss the hit, right? And then when we're dealing with people who've had, say, longer standing problems and they're worried about concussion, we're successfully getting them back into play as quickly as possible.
Is there something that I can do day to day without being measured or anything like that to increase my brain performances? Are there like, I don't know, lay exercises, for lack of a better term, that can help with that?
So start thinking about your brain in the same way you train your body. And all the obvious ones in terms of your fitness, your diet, and your sleep are key. We really think about reducing inflammation, not just in your body, but in your brain. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you that you cannot treat what you can't measure. So the number one thing, if you want to take control of your heart health, what do you got to do?
Go get a cardiogram or something, right?
Go get it. Put your arm in a blood pressure cuff and find out where your blood pressure is, right? We talk about blood pressure being the silent killer. Just basically go out and get an objective measurement and say, wow, more often than not, people are like, oh, okay, I'm relieved. I'm in the healthy zone. And they quickly think, okay, how do I think faster? How do I get that even better? Just like we do in terms of our cardiovascular function. So that's where things are going with our brain.
All right. Really impressive stuff. And I think exciting from an NFL perspective, but also just a life perspective. So Dr.
Absolutely.
Ryan Darcy of NeuroCatch, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right.
We continue to roll here on the Saints Insider Live podcast. I'm going to let the doctor go, and we will take a quick break and be back with you in just a few minutes.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana.
In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. Throw me something, mister, because this episode is all about the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. First, we talk to Barry Kern, President and CEO of Mardi Gras World, in the den where his team has built the floats for the parade, and he tells us how this all came together. Then, we'll hear from the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade, Todd Graves, about the honor of representing his homegrown business roots to the world. Let's get rolling. In this series, we're going to show you how the Super Bowl comes to life. First, we're going to talk to Seth Dodowski. He is the head of music for the NFL. As a singer and someone who has had the honor of singing the national anthem in the Superdome, I was so excited to hear how Seth and his team put on the iconic Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into it? How do they produce it in such a unique place of the Superdome? So here you're going to find out.
Welcome back to Radio Row here. As promised, Michael Brocker's on the show. He came up right during the break. So former LSU defensive tackle, also played Rams, Lions.
Yes,
is that it? Anybody
that's
else?
it, man. Those are my two right there.
So we're happy to have you here, and now you host your own podcast
Yes.
called The Broadcast that I think you're about to record some this afternoon, right?
Yes, man. We've been doing this about 2 years. This is our second year in a row being on Radio Row. But as a player, I did Radio Row like every year. My publicist asked me to do Radio Row, so I'm kind of used to like this experience and this whole Super Bowl atmosphere. But you know, being on the media side of it and doing the interviews and things, bro, it's tiring. I didn't know how tiring it is walking around this building, going to go get lunch, going to go get waters, going to do your interviews, going to do interviews. It's tiring. I commend you guys who do this on a professional level all the time. I really do.
Well, hey, it's a labor of love, though, right? Like we love to be here, and I would think. I don't know how long this week you've been here, but like the energy in the New Orleans Super Bowl, it's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans, I don't know what, you know, I want to say the capital of just culture and just, you know, the experience, because you have the food, you have the culture, you have, you know, almost like a Vegas style atmosphere here where, you know, nobody really goes to sleep. The city's always up. There's always something to do. So I think that's why New Orleans is a special place to host an event.
I'm curious, when you look at LSU and all the things going on there, and obviously they've had some great players come through it. 3 of the 5 Offensive Rookie of the Year finalists were LSU grads. How much pride do you still take in that program and following the Tigers?
Oh, man, I believe purple and gold, man. I truly do. I wasn't in the NIL deal, so when I went to LSU, it was truly passion for the school. I love LSU. I love playing in the SEC, having a rivalry versus Bama and things like that. So for me, man, I love LSU. I still follow the school now, and I'm loving the team.
I've heard guys say, man, I wish that NIL was around for me.
Oh, man.
Like, I don't know if it's regret. It's not like you missed it by just 1 year or anything like that.
Right.
How much has that changed the college landscape?
I mean, it's the Wild Wild West. Honestly, I mean, I'm glad that the players are being paid, but I think there has to be some structure to it. You know, have to be some kind of cap. But I'm understanding that the college experience is now moving to a more NFL professional based landscape. So I'm very intrigued on how that's going to look in the near future.
As we wind things down on Radio Row and get ready for the actual game, sometimes people forget there's a game.
Right.
But break this matchup down for us. I don't know if you have a pick you want to give, but we have two really good teams playing Sunday.
Yes, we do. You know, the Eagles have been, you know, one of the top teams in the NFC all year this year. You know, they kind of had a rough start early in the beginning, but I just think that's, you know, us being critical of Philly because they have you know, a tremendous team. So, you know, Kansas City is there based on, you know, they have athletes, they have players, and, you know, they have the experience. You know, they've been 2 years in a row. So I'm kind of tipping my hat to Kansas City just based on experience in itself, them knowing how to win games in those situations, last 2 minutes, you know, last play of the game type deal. So yeah, I feel like if the game comes down to a situational game, I feel like Kansas City will be on top if it comes down to that. But, you know, man, I think Philly can still get it done. You know that. So I'm just looking forward to a great game, honestly.
It should be a good one. Talking with Michael Brockers, former LSU defensive standout, and also in the NFL with the Rams and the Lions. The broadcast, your podcast.
Yes.
So many former athletes and other people in the space are starting podcasts. What do you aim to have your podcast stick out on? What is different about the broadcast?
It's not just sports. I'm definitely talking about the transition in the league, you know, entrepreneurship. You know, right now I feel like I am a serial entrepreneur of the Brock universe, which I call it, which is funny because I have my podcast going on, the broadcast. I have my own brand, Brock Brand Clothing. I'm doing real estate now, so I'm a real estate investor and going to be a realtor. So I'm kind of just keeping myself busy and just finding out how to make this thing work. I think learning is a big part of it and growing.
Did you always know that you were going to be that busy post-playing career, or was there kind of that moment where it's like, oh God, what do I do? I've always had football, and now I do.
Mm-hmm. There was a period of time where it was like a 6-month period where it was like, what do I do with this time? Like, and even if I got something done early in the morning, because I wake up early with my kids, I got something done in the morning and I'm just sitting the rest of the day, like, what else is there to do? So for me, staying busy is the key, just keeping my mind going. So having all these avenues of, things that I, working for myself, I have my brand, have my podcast, have my, real estate, my home. So for me, I love being busy for myself right now.
Did you always plan on it being so much? You talk about the podcast and the clothing line, the real estate, or has it just been adding one thing at a time?
One thing at a time. It took me a while to do the media part of it because I just struggled with being criticized, I guess. But, when it's your own opinion, nobody can really judge you, You're not perfect. You're not right, So it's just based on my opinion. So that kind of, opened me up to the media side of it. And I just think getting the authentic stories from, the horse's mouth, actually getting from the players. I love that aspect. I'm not a professional, so I do think professional journalism in sports is needed, but definitely getting the authentic side. I think some fans, true fans and diehard fans want to hear these stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, you got anything for
Yeah, did you like talking to the media when you were a player? Like, is that something that
early on I did not, man. I did not. I felt like it was a struggle to kind of always get it right, but I was media trained a little bit going into the NFL, and you kind of have to keep it vague. You don't want to say the wrong things. You don't want to go out there and say, oh yeah, I joined this team. I plan on winning the Super Bowl.
Well, that's
like the worst. That's like the worst thing to do. So you definitely have to be kind of monetized when you're playing in the league. When you now being on this side of it, having my own platform, I can say the things I truly want to say. So and always wanted to say. So I'm just loving that side of it.
So what's your hottest football take right now?
My hottest football take. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of enjoying this experience. All the guys we're having on. I think today we have on Cam Newton, so that's one of the biggest, athletes, joining the broadcast. So for me, I'm just enjoying the process. The organic, growth of the process where it's not, we're not just going from here to shooting to the stars, because sometimes you don't know how to handle that growth. I love where we are, where it's like a steady pace. Just stay consistent, keep putting things out there, even though you feel like it's not good. Just put things out there so people can, you can stay relevant.
Did you ever sack Cam as a player?
Yes, I did. I did sack Cam as a player. It's funny. It might come up because we played versus each other in college and also in the NFL. So, I think a couple of scenarios throughout our career might come up.
Just a few. Michael, tell us where people can find you and find the broadcast.
So I got a couple of tags for the people. So for me, the broadcast is my podcast. It's on Instagram and YouTube. It's TheBrockcast in one word, the broadcast. I also have Brock Brand Clothing on Instagram, and my lounge in Houston, Quad Houston. I'm doing that as well. So I kind of have a lot of things going on at this time.
All right. He's Michael Brockers, former LSU defensive tackle, Rams, Lions, and now a man of many hats. So,
yes, sir. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you stopping by, man.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Yep. We're going to take a quick break here on the Saints Insider Podcast, and we'll be back to wrap things up for the week in Radio Row right after.
At Ochsner Health, our purpose is clear: a strong and healthy Louisiana. Serving with more than exceptional care, with education and workforce development initiatives, and investments in economic development. We believe in innovation with compassion to give more hope and create more smiles. Because at the core of every community is you. Long live Louisiana. Long live you.
Oh, I should have asked him why Aaron Glenn didn't take this job.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
no, I said we should have asked him why Aaron Glenn didn't take the Saints job.
We don't have anybody else lined up. We'll just talk for a few. Oh, we're back. We don't have anybody lined up. We don't. And honestly, things are starting to file out here. I think, Matt, we're probably pretty close to people starting to break stuff down. I think we're getting to that point of the week.
Yeah, my body is starting to break down.
Dude, I'm tired. Like, not just physically, but mentally. Like, it has been a lot of stimulation. And a lot more. I know Jim's going to start his Datitude podcast here in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to hop on that for like 20. And my family's coming in at 3 for Super Bowl experience, and so there's like a little bit of a nap window in there that I got my eyes on.
Right.
It's bittersweet though. It's bittersweet that it comes to an end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go to the parade tomorrow as a fan, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'll check out the parade. Check out the parade and then catch another nap tomorrow and be ready for the game on Sunday. So. I don't know. Final thoughts on this game. I mean, I just think you can't repeat the overarching storyline enough here of the Chiefs are chasing a three-peat. And I heard somebody walking in here say, oh, it's already been done. The Packers did it. And they did. They won the last NFL championship before the Super Bowl and then won the first 2 Super Bowls. But if we're talking the modern era of professional football, I think it counts as history.
That's definitely way more impressive than the Packers.
Yeah, and the parity and just the number of teams and all that kind of stuff. Free agency, it's salary cap. I mean, it's just much harder than it used to be. But beyond that, I think the Eagles have a fascinating storyline too, in that they've had this great roster now for a few years, came up short a couple years ago, and now get a chance to finally get the big one against the team that they came up short against 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, even if you want to include the 2017 one with 3 and 8 years, like, it's impressive how this team constantly reinvents itself. I think it's really impressive that they didn't let 2023 season, which was a disaster after going 10-1, they finished 11-6. Like, just such a bad end to that season, and it could have broken them, and it didn't. Like, they made the necessary changes, and they are back to where every team wants to be.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I don't know. I guess we'll find out what happens on Sunday. It just feels like it's got that feel of a possible another classic. We've had really like 3 in a row in the Super Bowl now. If you go back to Bengals-Rams, came down to maybe not the very last play. I think there might have been a couple of kneel downs, but like the last drive where the Bengals didn't get it on 4th down. And then the last 2, obviously, Chiefs-Eagles 2 years ago, a field goal with like 8-9 seconds left, and then the overtime game last year.
Yeah, as long as it's better than the Patriots-Rams game that's the worst Super Bowl I've ever.
Yeah, we were talking about blowouts. That one wasn't exactly a blowout, but it was dreary.
It was just dreadful.
And around here, I don't have to tell everybody out there, but it was even worse because the Saints felt like they should have been in the game, and I agree with that too. That they would have won the game against New England had they been in it. The Rams were out of gas at that point, and Hey, Rod, sit down and give us your final pick. We got 5 minutes left for the week. Rod's been wandering around. We haven't gotten his prediction. What's your pick for Sunday, man?
Should you come sit here? I don't know where Norm went to go back to a 3-person do.
Oh, maybe so. Amelia's gonna do it. Rod's on my left here. She's going to fix the camera, but Rod, what's happening Sunday, man?
Thanks.
I am going to stick with the Eagles, who I picked at the beginning of the season.
You did?
I told you I had a parlay, right? Yeah, I did like in August. Dodgers win the World Series. Eagles win the Super Bowl. So I got to ride it out, man.
Ooh, are you hedging at all? Are you going to like Mahomes MVP hedge or something?
I may have to do something, right? And it was like a small bet, but it kind of pretty big. It pays pretty, It's like a $2 bet that pays like $120 or something.
Yeah, you don't want to just sit on that and not do anything.
Yeah, I got to get something with that, right? But I just think Saquon Barkley's going to be the difference, man. I mean, that's kind of why I picked the Eagles to begin with. I picked the Eagles and Ravens. I thought Barkley and Derrick Henry were just going to make that much of a difference. And I just think you get those kind of running backs, it kind of changes everything. And I'm sure everybody said the same thing about picking against Mahomes, and I'm definitely skeptical on that. But I think if the Eagles can kind of jump out on them early the Eagles can't get behind. They get behind, they're in trouble. I don't think they're built to come back like that. So, yeah, I'm riding with the Eagles.
All right. Well, that makes two of us. Most everybody else has been picking the Chiefs. Well, it does strike me that as players and former players come through here, a whole bunch of them, I would say 75% or more picking the Chiefs because they have that much respect for Mahomes and they kind of, the gamer that he is without necessarily breaking down the fact that the Eagles have a lot of advantages here too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles, I think the offensive line is really good. I think they can give the Chiefs some problems. So we'll see.
No doubt about it. We are there.
I saw this really weird stat. I always get in these little rabbit holes and I'm like looking up stats, and I was working on something for Sunday and I was looking up like interceptions in the Super Bowl. And like for the last 24 years, there's been at least one interception in 23 of the 24 Super Bowls, which I thought was crazy.
What was
the only one that wasn't was Chiefs Eagles 2 years ago.
Interesting.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts had the fumble 6.
Right.
But not an interception.
Yeah, it was just, But anyway, that's just kind of a random stat that I stumbled upon last night when I was just looking up some stuff. So,
what amazes me when I look back I've been looking back at a lot of historical Super Bowl boxes, how many interceptions there used to be in general in the NFL. Like they would just that's why there was so much running, because these quarterbacks are 3 or 4 picks in a game and everyone just shrugged their shoulders, but that would cost them the game.
Right. Lamar Jackson went through 4 in the whole season. I mean, that's just incredible, man. We went 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions this year. And I think Josh Allen had, 6 interceptions the whole season. I mean,
six interceptions.
That's just crazy when you think about it.
Quarterback play is just like probably the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
Mina Kimes said that 10 year out skewed forward, but I agree with her. I think it's.
Well, and that's despite pass rushers, and I mean everybody's trying to make life on the quarterbacks difficult because they know that's what you need to do to win a game, and yet the QBs, at least the very top ones, still excel in it. And even a guy like Derek Carr, look at his stats this year; they were not bad. Now he was injured, he didn't play a lot, but in the games he played, I think he had
check the tape,
15 touchdowns and 5 picks or something. Yeah. You had to go there. All right, we all had to go there. We ended the Super Bowl show with Derek Carr. Maybe next year. All right. Lots of thank yous to give. Thank you to all of our guests for stopping by. Norman Bell has been here all week with us, as has Amelia Cotton. They are doing the yeoman's work behind the scenes. Rod, you've been running around getting guests for us, using your connections to hook us up with guests, so we appreciate that. Matt stopped by several times. Jim Derry, Luke Johnson. Jeff only came by once. Jeff's too busy.
That was for 10 minutes,
I
right?
haven't seen Jeff. I saw Jeff at Clancy's the other night, and that's
the only time I saw Jeff was when he's
free meal. I did not.
No, we haven't got our free meal at Clancy's yet. He promises another time.
I spent way too much money at Clancy's, but that's fine.
I think Jeff. I don't know. He knows so many people in the media business. He probably gets so busy this week that I'm giving him an excuse.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm still mad at him. No, but the Saints players just stopped by. Spencer Rattler.
You're going to try to rattle out all my
Rashid Shaheed,
Blake
Groupie, Charlie Smith. Who else do we have?
Bud
Means, Cesar Ruiz. I think that's it. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. I apologize if I am. And then ex-Saints Jermon Bushrod. I said Rashid. Yeah, I said Rashid. Marcus Colston. And, all the ex-Saints, Thomas Morstead, who came by as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
Michael Lewis.
Yep. Thank you. The beer man.
I always think of the author with Michael Lewis.
The Moneyball, yeah. Kyle Long came on. That was fun.
Oh, cool.
The Old Spice guy. I'm forgetting people. I know I am, and I apologize for that. But I appreciate all of you guys stopping by. Norm and Amelia, also Alex Lee, Robert Young spent some time with us here. Scott Ravelay came by today, so appreciate all of you guys. And, of course, all of you listening. Tune in. You can go back and watch the shows. I'm sure you didn't get to see them all. But we'll try to put in some chapters so you can see the individual interviews throughout the weekend as we lead toward Super Bowl 59, 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. And we will, of course, have full coverage for you then. So we're going to sign off with that. And I want to let you know one more time, we were brought to you this week by Ochsner Health. They're the official medical provider of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. Live from Radio Row, signing off for Rod and Matt, I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you guys for tuning in.